Jola, we're here and we're all right. I appreciate you guys coming back. Okay, so we'll do this for now. I don't know when the court people are going to come back. She said the rest of the morning, the judge, apparently. So I don't know. A reminder that jurors are never shown on courtroom feed. The camera is positioned behind the jury. I'll give it a second for Facebook people to join up. One walked right into the door next to the press and was unfortunately shown. Yeah, there was a juror that was shown. Okay. The judge probably not happy. Honestly, though, again, they said the trial would be 6 to 8 weeks, and we're already on 7. So the trial's definitely going over its time. I don't think that... Yeah. All right. So let's listen to Nancy. I heard, obviously I hear she doesn't agree, but also she usually has a panel of people, so I'm sure maybe she'll have somebody to counter her thoughts and stuff. So everybody has something. Hey, Lori. Okay, I guess let's get started.
Pause for a big thank you to our partner making today's program possible. It Today.
Offer a fresh way in San Diego. Resources.
Our meat first tasty.
A big conspiracy. Was he set up?
Shit.
Or is it a deadly romance? Did Karen Reed mow down her lover, John O'Keefe?
Law and Crime might actually be ending the live, maybe. I don't know. They might be done. It says Law and Crime. Thanks for watching. So we'll do this for now this morning.
After a boozy argument. Good evening. I'm Nancy Grace. This is Crime Stories. Thank you for being with us.
Taking several pieces of plastic found on John O'Keefe's clothing, Massachusetts State Police Crime Lab forensic scientist Ashley Vallier shows how she was able to fit the pieces together, and using tape to hold the pieces together creates a larger piece that fits into the taillight housing from Karen Reed's SUV.
Wow. There's a big conspiracy, so I guess that means the police are in on it. That includes the crime lab scientists. I have a very hard time believing that Ashley Vallier from the crime lab is part of a big conspiracy to frame Karen Reed. But there are a lot of problems with the state's case. I've never gotten so much hate mail online since I said O.J. Simpson did it. I'm trying to understand what's happening in the courtroom.
Yeah, if Nancy's saying that, I don't think I've ever had so much heat either on Twitter or any social media. Like it's been brutal. I've literally had a YouTuber reach out to me. He's just like, hey, he was just like, yo, I'm just checking on you. Hope you're good. He said, let me see what he said. He said, don't let these true crime crazies get to you. He was being really supportive, but I've had a few people kind of reach out to me like, yo, you good? It's never been. Oh, well, the last time was the Upchurch craze. That was really crazy for me. But I've never had any other moment like that, like now.
A vast police conspiracy? Who's part of this conspiracy? Or did Karen Reed mow down her lover? Their relationship fraught with volatile arguments. What happened? Now remember, Nancy, if we're not sure, if we can't determine what happened, if the evidence is tainted in some way, then the jury's duty will be to acquit. It's the state's duty to prove this case beyond a reasonable doubt. Not to a mathematical certainty such as 2 and 2 equals 4, but beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, this science lab professional, Ashley Vallier, puts tail light pieces back together again. Pieces of a tail light. She tapes it back together, and guess what? It fits into Karen Reed's missing section of her SUV tail light. Okay, it's going to take a lot of convincing to make me believe that a crime lab scientist is part of a plot. But first of all, who is the victim in this case? Regardless of how he was killed and not by natural causes. So who is he? Listen.
John J.J. O'Keefe grows up in Braintree, Massachusetts, with dreams of one day becoming a police officer. O'Keefe graduates from Northeastern University and pursues a master's degree in criminal justice from the University of Massachusetts. O'Keefe moves to Canton and becomes an officer with the Boston PD, serving on the force for 16 years. When O'Keefe's sister, Kristen, and her husband, Stephen Furbush, pass away within 2 months of each other, O'Keefe takes in their 2 young children.
Wow. Okay, hold on just a moment. Let me understand something. Guys, we have an all-star panel to make sense of what we know right now. I've got a criminal defense attorney who's a former federal prosecutor. I've got a renowned psychoanalyst to help me wade through this. I've got a forensic expert, the director of the Cold Case Research Institute. I have one of the most renowned medical examiners in our country, Dr. Kendall Crowns. But first, let me understand something. Going out to Lauren Collin, who's joining us at the courthouse, who's been in the middle of all of this, host of the Outlier podcast. Lauren.
So there's people on Twitter that are saying the DNA, John's DNA on his taillight doesn't matter. I'm like, what? So somebody said, why do you think this is so important to the case? And then the Glare responded to me, which we obviously disagree. He said it was his girlfriend's car, genius, any more bombshells. I don't think my DNA is on my girlfriend's taillight. I could be wrong. We'd have to hire some experts, I guess, some DNA analysts. I highly doubt my DNA is just on my girlfriend's taillight.
Did I hear that correctly? John O'Keefe took in his nieces, nephews when his siblings died?
No, yes, Nancy, you're correct. Officer John O'Keefe is such a stand-up man. His sister passed away, and then a few months later, her husband passed away. So he legally adopted their children and essentially acted as their father ever since.
Oh, my star.
All right, Danette, I'll give you that. Danette says that. Danette says you put things in the trunk, right? I have. I've never touched it. Have I touched a taillight? Maybe I'll give you that. I don't think I have DNA on the taillight. Especially nowadays with the cars, push the button, the taillight open, like the trunk or whatever. Oh my God, Chris. I don't know, man. Some people are saying that's normal. Mel gonna stop offering to help with the groceries. Now, shit, yeah, my DNA on the taillight. Is it just DNA or was it blood DNA? That's a good question. That I actually don't know. This person is based on DNA analysis testifies there's a strong 740 million likelihood that John O'Keefe's DNA is one that matched the taillight. Chart testifies that per mitochondrial DNA testing, with 95% confidence, she can say that the hair found on Karen Reed's right rear of her car is a match with John O'Keefe. So the other thing too, let's say that. Another forensic expert, Andre Porto, testified that he tested DNA on the taillight compared it to John O'Keefe. It's likely a match. So not only is there DNA on a taillight, but also that the single strand of hair is weird. I'll give you that. The single strand of hair, that is a little weird. How did the hair strand survive through the storm and like all this shit and into the... But the strand of hair matches O'Keefe as well. I just feel like this stuff, you kind of have to take it all into context, I think.
This is a stand-up guy, and that's putting it mildly. Lauren Collin, I appreciate you joining us from the courthouse.
Yes.
Because I'm telling you, this case is explosive. When I said hey, didn't Karen Reed say I did it? Did I hit him? And didn't the broken tail light pieces fit into her car? And did she have an incredibly over the limit blood alcohol that night? And weren't they arguing that night? And didn't she know exactly where to go look for his body? Didn't all that happen? That sounds like she's guilty. I've never gotten so much hate since the time I said, yeah, Simpson did it. Obvious. So,
I've watched the entire trial. We've been here. Godfather says clearly Mel has not seen all the trial. This case should never have been tried. We've been here watching it. I think they have enough.
I'm missing a lot, obviously, and I've been looking at the evidence, and there are problems with some of the evidence. Specifically, Ellie, law enforcement, got on the stand, and it came out that he had said very disparaging things about the defendant, Karen Reed. Now, that's bad, but does that make her innocent? We've got so much to wade through, guys. Everybody listen to this.
Boston police officer John O'Keefe finds love with financial advisor.
Ocean Dreaming said, Mel, the one hair, was it put in a red Solo cup?
Karen Reed. Reed, 44, lectures at Bentley University while also working for Fidelity Investments. Reed moves into O'Keefe's home during their 2-year relationship, but it's not always smooth sailing for the couple. O'Keefe's niece and nephew hear loud arguments between Reed and their uncle with increasing frequency. Friends who joined the couple on a trip to Aruba report a blowout fight between Reed and O'Keefe during the vacation.
Wow, if you can't be happy in tropical paradise, can you be happy anywhere? Okay, that's a whole nother can of worms. I want to get to the evidence. Joining me at the courthouse, Lauren Conlon. Lauren, tell me what's happening right now.
So right now, during this crazy trial, Nancy, and I'll tell you, it's crazy. We just left off with the lead investigator, Trooper Michael Proctor, yesterday, who was cross-examined, and a lot of bad text messages came out. And look, I agree with you. That doesn't mean that Karen Reed is guilty per se, but again, this is going to the credibility. Now, also on the stand yesterday where we left off was Lieutenant Brian Tully. So he will be finishing today with ADA Lally, and then we'll see the cross-examination. But evidence so far, it's a little bit nuanced. I don't know if you want to get into it yet, Nancy, but I can point out a lot of things that you said. I can point out the other side, the other argument.
Tim Jansen joining me, high-profile criminal defense attorney, and for my purposes, it's very important, former federal prosecutor, legal analyst for the Tallahassee Democrats newspaper at JansenLawOffice.com. Tim, thank you for being with us. I want you to jump in because I can't think of a reason that all of these police would get together and agree to frame somebody, and not one cop would break ranks and say, listen.
Nobody has any ounce of morality. Look at Tully. You don't think Tully would be like, yo, this is wrong? The cops, the firefighters, the 2 to 3 different families, John O'Keefe's niece and nephew that said, Karen said, did I hit him or I hit him? It must have been the snowplow before anybody even knew he was dead. Like, it would have to be like a mass, I don't know, at least, 15, 20 people or something plus to be all conspiring and like just, let's be quiet. Make sure we get our story together. And these people, because somebody was yesterday was like, oh, Proctor, he was being investigated and they got like 3,000 pages. And I'm like, okay, and the only thing you guys have is, and it's bad, these disparaging words. Where's the conversation of conspiracy? Like, where do these people concoct and maintain their story?
That's not what happened. This other cop did. I find that really hard to believe, but it may not take a ton of cops. It might take 2 cops, 3 cops that are very good friends that join together to cover something up. But why would a cop kill their friend?
Nancy, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I don't think it was a conspiracy of everybody involved. I think you had an investigator who didn't go to the crime scene, who was biased, had a relationship with these people. he said in his text message, something stinks. I think when he got this case, there are things that didn't add up, okay? One, the injuries do not add up with someone getting backed up by the injuries. The injuries look more like somebody punched him. He might have fallen and got it and suffered these injuries, and the body might have been moved. He also had what appeared to be dog bites. The dog of the owner got rid of the dog. They cleared the floor and sold the house $50,000 less than what its value was. The Jennifer McCabe, the sister-in-law, at 222.
One misconception though about the way the house was sold, and I saw Carly talking about this, and she sent me the listing. They made a profit when they sold the house. I think what it was is like they were asking for a certain amount, and I don't know if it was $50K less or what it was. They still made way more than what they bought the house for. They made a profit, but they want to make it seem like, oh, they lost $50,000 because they were so desperate to sell the house. No, they got a lesser offer, and they took the offer. They still made a ton of money back. It wasn't like they just, oh, you know what, we're so desperate, let's get rid of this house and take a loss. They didn't take a loss.
Google's how long does hypothermia take place? She then deleted that. Now, this is before the body was found. So when Proctor comes onto the case, he's only getting what he's told, and he never went to the crime scene.
I want you, if you don't mind, one more time, Tim Jansen, to go through what you're saying, because does this mean she's innocent? No, it does not. But does it cast doubt on the state's case to the extent there will be a hung jury or an acquittal? And I want to tell everybody that's beating me up online, number one, don't care. But number two, I don't have a dog in this fight.
Oh, shit, Nancy!
I care about one thing, a true verdict. The case laid out by the state, in my mind, is overwhelming. But I also believe the defense is making major headway in what they're doing with all the cross-examination and all of the points they are making. I think it's very, very compelling. I want to know the truth just like everybody else. I want the right person to go to jail for life. That said, Tim Jansen, you're right about these problems in some of the state's evidence. I want you to go through it one more time. And I'm going to clear up one thing. It's my understanding, and everybody on the panel, for Pete's sake, jump in, okay? We're not giving a speech at Harvard Law graduation. You can break in, especially about that Google search that was conducted. Now, you do know that witness says the Google search was at the behest of Reed. Shit. Continue. Take it from the top, Tim Jansen.
All right. So the injuries, in order for a shoe to come off a person when they're hit by a car, it usually has to be a high level of speed, usually 50 miles per hour or more. The car was only going 24 miles per hour when she backed up, according to the black box of the car. Now, those injuries are inconsistent. Where did that dog bite come from?
Oh, shit.
And I suggest to you that the
Where's my picture? Let me see.
Rear tail light, that was not found until after it was in the custody of the police. And then it was found later, not that night, later. So it opens up an argument that might have been planted, like the Mark Furman glove was planted.
Okay, let's just follow what you're saying. And I love how defense attorneys will just throw something out. Let's follow it through to its natural and logical conclusion. You're saying the taillight wasn't found that night in the dark, in the snow. Okay, understandable. No. It was found later, and it was in police custody. So the conclusion, the logical conclusion to what you're saying is that the police used that taillight, those taillight pieces, to frame Karen Reed. That they all got together and they framed Karen Reed. Is that believable? Is that what you're saying?
What I'm saying is there's a possibility that the people in the house who are law enforcement people may have moved evidence, changed evidence. We know that McCabe lied about the Google search, right? We know about the dog. They got rid of the dog after this incident, and it looked like a bite mark on the victim's body.
Well, I guess they did. And you were mentioning the sale of the home.
They sold the house for $50,000, and they cleaned the floor up downstairs. They removed the whole flooring.
Question to you, Lauren Collin, what's happening at the courthouse right now?
So while you guys were talking, Karen Reed, Alan Jackson, and David Yannetti just walked by. Everybody was cheering and shouting, "Free Karen Reed." Nancy, if you don't mind, I just want to clarify about the taillight and why that seems to be so contentious. So the crime scene at 34 Fairview, it was never, ever closed off. Civilians were walking around, pulling up in the driveway by 8 a.m. And the whole thing is, the taillight pieces were not found until after Trooper Proctor and Buchanan showed up at Karen Reed's parents' house in Dighton, towed the car to the Sally Port. While it was at the Sally Port, about, I want to say it took about maybe 45 minutes to get the CERT team back to 34 Fairview, and that's when they pulled the pieces of the taillight out and the shoe. And there's tons of snow on the ground, and I think that is where people were like, well, wait a minute. They didn't pull the taillight out until after Trooper Proctor got a hold of the vehicle. And then the other thing is that Officer Nick Barros of the Dighton Police, who has no connection whatsoever, testified a few days ago that when he saw the taillight at Karen Reed's parents' house, it was only cracked, not shattered.
Hold on. Okay, there's more information. The judge enters and calls attorneys to the sidebar. Then they bring one of the jurors and are now speaking to her privately. This is 45 minutes ago. The other jurors are absent. The judge orders the courtroom camera turned off. The juror exits, and the judge orders a recess. It's not clear why the juror was brought in, nor if she was being dismissed. They're still waiting to hear what happened with the juror who was brought in for a sidebar. Throughout the hearing so far, she's been very attentive and taking copious notes. The judge returns to the bench and calls the attorney to the sidebar. This was 15 minutes ago. The courtroom camera is still off. Now a different juror has been brought in for a private conversation with the judge and attorneys at sidebar. This is not the same juror as brought earlier. What the hell is going on? 5 minutes ago, reminder, a male juror was dismissed earlier this week for personal reasons. There are currently 16 jurors on the panel. A second juror leaves the courtroom. The judge remains at the sidebar with the attorneys. Now a third juror, this is a minute ago, a third juror has entered the courtroom and is speaking with the judge at sidebar. The juror is laughing and seems at ease. All three jurors brought in so far are women. What? What in the world? What is going on? Okay.
Cracked, and a small piece was missing.
Jennifer McCabe calls John O'Keefe shortly after leaving the bar with directions to her brother-in-law, Brian Albert's home. At 12:15 a.m., McCabe and several other partygoers see Reed's black SUV parked outside. When the couple has not come in 15 minutes later, McCabe texts, then calls John O'Keefe to confirm they arrived. McCabe texts 4 more times after the call, but O'Keefe doesn't respond. McCabe assumes the couple decided to skip the party. Between 1:30 a.m. and 2 a.m., after-party attendees clear out of the Alberts home.
Wow. Okay, more.
On the way to Brian Albert's after party, Karen Reed and John O'Keefe are locked in an intense argument. The couple sits in Reed's car outside the Alberts home fighting, and they decide to part ways for the evening. Wow. Karen Reed lets John O'Keefe out of the car and heads back to their house, expecting her boyfriend to find his own way home. At 1 a.m., Reed leaves O'Keefe a voicemail before she goes to bed. In the message, Reed tells O'Keefe he's a loser and, quote, I hate you, John.
Wow. Okay. Dr. Bethany Marshall joining us.
I don't know if they're going to play that in the trial.
A high-profile psychoanalyst joining us from L.A., author of Deal Breaker, when to work on a relationship and when to walk away. Very important for today's analysis. You can find her at drbethanymarshall.com. Dr. Bethany, with their volatile history, their argument just before he's killed, of course they're looking at her.
Of course, Nancy. And as you know, and I know, over 50% of all domestic violence violence occurs after one or more members of the couple have been drinking. And in this case, both of them were drinking, and alcohol makes people extremely dysregulated. They lose perspective, they get paranoid, they begin to develop very intense hatred towards their partners. And Karen Reed may be suffering from something called borderline personality disorder. And what we see with borderline is that there are fractured relationships, explosive outbursts, impulsivity. And if she was really angry at him and she was drunk, I can see her stepping on the gas pedal. I can see her throwing it in reverse. And this idea about the sister-in-law looking up hypothermia, Nancy, you know, because you were a prosecutor, how common it is for people who commit a crime to start frantically calling all their family members, and then the family members start to concoct this big lie to cover up for the crime. They panic instead of thinking. So I think the right wing, the big conspiracy is actually amongst Karen Reed's friends, not amongst the police. And in terms of the jury, Nancy, you know that when people become paranoid and believe in conspiracies, any evidence to the contrary of what they've already made up their mind about just solidifies their own beliefs. So I think it's a losing case from that perspective. If the jury thinks, you know, that there's this conspiracy, they're not going to listen to the evidence. It's all going to just, you know, calcify and reinforce what they already think about the case.
Cheryl McCollum joining me, Cold Case Foundation founder and forensic expert. Cheryl, I want you to take a listen to this.
Just before 5 a.m., Karen Reed wakes up and quickly realizes boyfriend John O'Keefe isn't in their home or answering his phone. Reed wakes O'Keefe's niece and asks her to call him while she contacts people they were with last night. Reed paces down a hallway while she speaks with Jennifer McCabe and O'Keefe's friend, Carrie Roberts. O'Keefe's niece overhears Reed ask,
Allie, Nancy Grace retweeted your post on Twitter. Where is it? She retweeted your post, says, yep, I agree with Nancy Grace. All these people conspired and not one person breaks. Like, no, LOL. This is very, very slim to none that would happen. Very hard to believe at Icked Mill. Oh, Lord, they're going to come for you.
What if I did something? What if a snowplow hit him? Reed tells Roberts, I don't remember anything from last night. We drank so much, I don't remember anything.
You know, Cheryl McCollum, guys, founder of the Cold Case Research Institute and star of Zone 7 podcast. Cheryl, I think I've detailed several times for you an evening when my husband David had to go out of town for work, and he always texts me when he lands, when he goes to supper, when he leaves supper, and before he goes to bed. He didn't text. He didn't text after he landed. And that's uncharacteristic. I was up till 3 a.m. calling hospitals. I'm AD, who you know, my
what a normal person would do.
Colleague, help me. We were both up till 3 in the morning trying to make sure David Lynch had not had a heart attack or gotten whopped on the head. I never said the words, what if I did something?
Correct.
Right.
Nancy, there is so much with this case. If you follow her actions, her wording, when she decided to go back to look for him, where she pointed out, you know, exactly where she dropped him off the last time she saw him, that's bad. But here's the other thing. Every single time this case tells you to go right, it forces you to look left as well.
Juragate.
Hey everyone. When you step developers will have to
out merriment and so you can
easily in your skin's community.
What else has been testified to that Karen Reed said? Listen.
At 5:07 a.m., Karen Reed backs out of John O'Keefe's driveway in her SUV and
United says report from Grant Ellis. The worst possible. It's my understanding that one of the jurors and the Karen Reed child may have gone to a local bar in Canton on Thursday. Well, why would that matter though if they did or not? May have gone to a local bar. Oh, the scene where Karen Reed and John O'Keefe were before Karen hit John. Oh, to ask questions? No. No, don't say
and
that.
hits his car in her haste to look for her missing boyfriend. Reed doesn't stop and meets Carrie Roberts and Jennifer McCabe at McCabe's home. Roberts gets behind the wheel of Reed's SUV and drives to Brian Albert's home where they partied the night before. On the way, Reed mentions her taillight is busted and voices concern she may have hit O'Keefe. As the women drive down Fairview Road, Reed spots John O'Keefe's body lying crumpled in the snow outside Albert's home.
Listen, I want to believe everybody's innocent, as does the Constitution. But why would you say, what if I did something? I can't remember. Like I was telling you earlier, I didn't say that the night I couldn't find David. What if I did something? I assumed it had a car accident or some other horrible event had occurred. And now she says her tail light is busted and she knows where to find his body? That's bad.
Nancy, the whole thing is bad. Hit the car in the driveway. As of right now, we don't know. We don't know how the man died. And again, I've said it's like Casey Anthony. Everybody had a theory that the baby drowned, the baby got the mama's drugs, whatever. Right now, we do not know how John O'Keefe was killed. We don't know. You've got an officer that is the lead detective that did not go to the crime scene. He's got a void of time on the phone when he towed her car. He is seen at the back tail light. You've got injuries to his arm that it doesn't line up to me with one tail light. Also, the other injuries of it, of the car, are his ribs busted? Is his abdomen bruised? Are his legs, filled with road rash? No. A lot of this is not making sense to us.
Wait a minute, Cheryl. None of that does not necessarily apply, because why would he have road rash when you're dragged along asphalt? Because he wasn't dragged along asphalt. According to the state, he was hit when Karen Reed was backing up, and he fell and he died of hypothermia. So road rash has no place in this analysis. However, the other injuries to his body. Joining me, Dr. Kendall Crowns, Chief Medical Examiner, Tarrant County, that's Fort Worth, lecturer.
Okay, by the way, let me just, because I know people are wondering about the trial. Okay, they have Law and Crime started a new live stream, so we'll stay tuned into the new live stream. And it says here that they're working on getting the audio. I know a couple people mentioned there's some type of audio. There's no video right now, but there's some type of audio feed. So, okay, so I have it here. Once they get it, we'll listen in. And there's like 10 minutes left of Nancy Grace. We're almost done.
At Burnett School of Medicine at TCU. Dr. Crowns, thank you for being with us. I've got a question to you about those apparently bite marks. I don't know what they are, but they are purported to be bite marks. Dr. Crowns, when you are bitten, let's just pretend he was bitten. Let's go with that. Can you, a doctor, look at the injury on the arm and determine how long it has been healing? In other words, did those bite marks occur that night, or were they from an earlier incident? And if they did occur that night, in what scenario? We know nothing about him being exposed to the dog that night. But that aside, can you look at injuries such as these and determine the time they occurred?
So you can look at injuries and you can note whether there's healing occurring, like scab formation. Also, you want to look for hemorrhage because they could be post-mortem. So if you have no blood associated with the wounds or no vital tissue reaction, then you're kind of dealing with wounds that occurred after death. But if you look at them and they're fresh, there's no scab formation, they probably occurred at or around the time the individual died. And looking at those wounds on the forearms with the paired kind of abrasion marks that you're seeing, especially on the one forearm picture, those are very interesting to me because they do look like those paired wounds from canines. But they are talking about a German Shepherd, so usually German Shepherds have a really good bite grip, and they'll dig in and they'll tear chunks out. So those wounds, if they are from a dog, they're very superficial, and they also, some of the wounds are the way that the canines would be paired. Some are closer than others, so it doesn't quite fit with it being the same dog if they are indeed bite marks.
Wow, Dr. Kendall Crowns, it's amazing the way you analyze that. Would you agree that they look like dog bites, or do you disagree?
So in the pictures that I've been able to see, the canines are the ones that usually cause those paired scratch marks. And then usually the incisors are between those two canines. So you'll get the paired bite marks, but with the centralized incisors in between them scratching along. So when you have those kind of superficial scratches from the canines, you also get the in between the canines, you'll get the incisors scratching as well. So looking at those, they do look like paired parallel incised or abrasions, but then there's no incisor wounds between the canine wounds. So they're interesting. They have the appearance of dog bites, but I don't think they are, because they're, plus you've got differences in the pairings as well. You have some that are wide, some that are close. So it's odd. It doesn't look like a dog per se to me.
Now that you're saying all that, I understand by looking at these photos. I didn't know what to make of it. I didn't have a trained eye looking at it. I hear you. We keep hearing Cheryl McCollum stating that we don't know cause of death. We don't know cause of death. We do know cause of death. Blunt force trauma and hypothermia. We do know cause of death. So I don't know why you're saying that, but I do want to address the dog bites, the alleged dog bites. From what I'm hearing from our expert, Dr. Kendall Crowns, they may or may not be dog bites. Some evidence suggests they are, some evidence suggests they're not. However, I don't have a time, and those are not the cause of death.
All right. I think we've heard enough there. Cat C, thank you for the membership and gifting a membership. And Red Base, thank you for the 12 months. It's a beautiful day to all. Thank you. So we're just waiting. We're waiting right now. They're supposed to be coming with some type of audio. Obviously, we still don't hear it yet. I have it unmuted. And this morning, I guess it's been kind of a fiasco. It seems like a shit show with the jury situation. This reporter said there had been like 4 jurors or something called up, and she said that it was tense. Susan, her name, Susan something. Lord Almighty. Bro, even the people replying on my tweets, hell's coming for them. I'm sorry. Oh, jeez. It's really not crazy. I'm not saying nothing crazy. Decided to frame her friends. Okay, so. Ooh. Oh. Well. Oh, thanks, Carly. Yeah. The most clown show trial I've ever seen. Gigi said, so where did the holes in the top come from? Don't see a broken taillight. I don't get the pig thing either. DNA was pig. I'm not sure what was up with that. I am watching live. This is live right now, yeah. We're waiting to see what happens in the courtroom. I saw somebody say they were coming back at noon, but I don't know if that's true or not. And I really don't know what's going on. Let me see here. Okay, there's some updates. Now the original, let me start. Let me give you a time frame. There was at least 4 jurors called. And then about 10 minutes ago, this reporter said, so far, no indication that any of the 4 jurors have been dismissed. We haven't seen them leave the courthouse. Now the original juror who was brought in this morning has been brought back. She's back at the bench talking with the judge and attorneys. 5 minutes ago, he says the judge was leaning in and speaking soft with the juror who was nodding her head. The juror has now left the courtroom. A minute ago, now another one of the previously questioned jurors is back at the sidebar for less than a minute and leaves again. I think she was the third. Bro, what is going on in that courtroom? What's going on with the jury? What? I got your Maddie's foot. I'll be right back. What the hell? All right. We're going to check for some updates. I was reading some of the messages on YouTube. And I want to check Twitter. For any updates inside the courtroom. I got to filter all these other comments. Allie, thank you for the updates, though. Appreciate that. Let's see. This guy, David B. and Nick, he's giving a lot of updates. The juror holds up her hand as if to say goodbye and exits the courtroom. Court is now in recess for 5 minutes. I guess they're coming back soon then. I don't know what happened in the courtroom this morning. So somebody was saying, imagine if it was a mistrial. I think maybe Red Base or no, somebody else. And I replied, imagine if it was a mistrial, but what Hoax said is true. There's a lot of, usually they have the backup jurors, so hopefully they'd have enough people they can just replace. Michael, thank you. Says Boston 25 after the 5-minute recess. They're on. Oh, I just lost it. Okay, they're on. Judge will let the air Zoom feed and video. Awesome. All right, so we should be starting back soon. Just hang in there, guys. Red Base, thank you so much for the 12 months. I really appreciate that. You guys hold me down. Thank you. Lazy B, thank you for the 10 months. Amazing. You need to be on Nancy Grace panel, Mel. I wonder how we can make it happen. Always love hearing your insight and opinion. I met her for the first time in CrimeCon. At CrimeCon. There was a lot of people there. I met her briefly. I took a picture. I think she has this height thing because the person that takes pictures for her, I noticed they hold the camera up above. It's always a shot that's from up above coming down. I don't know if she has a height thing. She is short. But she was funny because the first picture, they don't let you take a picture yourself. The camera person takes your phone or whatever device you have and they take a picture. I'm like, what the hell? Okay. So they took a picture. But the pictures they took were really messed up. So I got back in line. And I thought Nancy was going to grill me. I forgot what she said. She said something really funny. We were laughing. But not only that, I watched her performance. I don't know if you could really call it performance. She had a show where she talked about her life, her family. I think one of her husbands was murdered, I think. And she got really emotional telling that story. I know a lot of people tend to hate this lady. She did a really good job. I was just wow. When she was speaking about the death, I think of one of her ex-husbands. And that's why she ended up, I think, becoming a prosecutor, doing the shit that she does to put criminals back. But I think she said she was doing it almost as a I don't know, a vengeful thing, kind of, to put as many, her fiance, thank you guys, to put as many people behind bars as she could that were, she felt were guilty or whatever. So I almost got emotional. I kind of got emotional listening to her story. She did a really good job. Did a really good job. And I met her producer. And I told her producer, I was like, whatever happened to Boy in the Basement? She was like, she kind of almost didn't remember the story. And I'm like, yo, I covered the segment that you guys did. And on YouTube, it got 600,000 views, something like that. On Facebook, I think it was 2 million views. I don't know if it was 1 million or 2 million views. That story was crazy as shit. And I pre-recorded it, but I reacted it to it. And I couldn't believe it. And at one point, the guy even tried to sue her. What? The guy tried to sue her ass. And so the producer, she was like, oh, here's my card, my contact. Get a hold of me, whatever. I never did reach out to her, but this was one of the craziest. There's been so many crazy stories, but this one I couldn't believe this guy was on live TV.
Take a close look at Charlie missing.
This is my 12-year-old son, Charlie.
His friends knock on door after door, hoping to find his son. The FBI and police working together to find him.
Tonight, a little boy is missing. Take a look at him. Charlie Bothell, father of the missing child. Is it true that you have been going door to door trying to get people to help you find your son?
It is. I've been going door to door since he
the father of a missing child
disappeared.
Okay? You feel sympathetic. You feel sad. You feel you're whatever. This story is crazy. Now, I was sent this video the other day by Jazz. We're going to watch this together because my reaction, she heard my initial reaction, and I was screaming. I pretty much had one word to say. I kind of screamed out loud, and I was like, it was just kind of crazy. And so I had to go look up and see what came out of this story. And make sure you check out the... We got it. By supporting me through my sponsor. Together regarding this story.
Out to the father of the missing 12-year-old boy, Charlie. With me is his father, Charlie Bothell. Charlie, we're getting reports that your son has been found in your basement.
So they're literally... This guy's kid's been missing. I think it was for 11 days. I need to clip this and post it on Twitter. They're on a live broadcast, okay? Doing an interview. While they're doing this live broadcast, they find this guy's son. Yo, that's his face. Yo, look at Nancy's face.
Mr. Bothell.
Imagine you're interviewing somebody that says their kid is missing. And you're going out of your way. You have them on live TV. And they're like, yo, your kid was found in your basement. Mother effer. Like,
are what? Yeah, we are getting reports that your son has been found alive in your basement.
What?
Yes,
bro, his reaction.
If you could hand me that wire very quickly. Yeah, we're getting that right now. From
look at his reaction.
How could your son be alive in your basement?
Comment down below right now. Don't look at anybody's comment. Just go type in the box. Tell me what you're thinking about this.
I have no idea.
Look at Nancy's face.
Now, this is just a report that we are hearing out of Detroit that we're trying to confirm. Everybody in New York, please get on it. Let me know when we get Charlie Langton from WWJ. Sir, did you check your basement?
I checked my basement. The FBI checked my basement. The Detroit police checked my basement. My wife checked my basement. I've been down there several times. We've all been checking. How?
Okay, this is what we are hearing, that the missing...
Karen, read back. I have the feed open, so we're waiting. I guess we'll be back in a minute.
12-year-old boy has been found alive and well in his father's basement. Now, this is what I don't understand why you guys would have reported he's missing, and all our viewers have been on the lookout for him.
We've been on the lookout for him. We searched that entire house repeatedly. The FBI searched, the Detroit police searched. We've all searched. Oh, God, they brought dogs, everything. Everybody is searched. What? Okay, my son.
Have you checked your cell phone?
My cell phone is dead. I actually getting down here.
Your kid's missing. Your cell phone's dead.
I left it in the car charging because it had died on me. Okay.
And you're telling us that you searched your basement and your wife searched your basement.
I searched my basement. My wife searched my basement. The FBI searched my basement. The Detroit police searched my basement. We've all searched my basement multiple times. Yes. They had the dogs searched. We've all searched the basement. The dogs searched my basement. Oh, God.
Okay, well, you know what? I'm going to give you a chance to call home and see what you can find out. Charlie Langton, WWJ News. Charlie, we're getting reports tonight that the boy has been found alive in Daddy's basement.
Yeah, Nancy, we're just getting word right now, and we've just basically
like when I posted this, people were kind of like, "Is this real?" I couldn't believe it either. Like I was like, you almost think like this is like a show, like it is a show, but like an actor, like the guy's acting or some shit. Like,
the boy has been found alive
in real time,
the father's basement, and we're just getting.
Katie, that story. Balloon Boy story. That's the story that people told me I should cover. I haven't covered it to this day. Some people were telling me that shit was crazy too. Right?
Yes. Right now that is true. And literally, it just broke moments ago. Now, why the father didn't know about that for the last 11 days? What if the child was afraid? If there was any other collusion amongst anyone? What the child ate? All of those are questions that we are trying to get reports on right now. We understand that we're sending news crews right now to the scene. We're also understanding that the police chief is going to make yet another announcement that should be coming up a little bit later on. But yes, the boy has been found alive in his father's basement.
So this part now, okay, I think this is like the day after, or I don't know if it's the same day. I think it's the same day, but the media catches the father and they wanted to talk to him. There's a portion behind this that explains how they find the child. Oh, they're back in the court. Oh, no. I think they're back in court. There's audio. I got some audio. That story, it was so wild to me.
117 Commonwealth versus Karen Reed.
There we go. I think we're back. Oh, only audio? Only audio, guys? I guess.
Appreciate your patience. Let me ask you those 3 questions. Is everyone able to follow the instructions and refrain from discussing this case with anyone? Yes. Thank you. Everyone said yes or nodded affirmatively. Were you also able to follow the instructions and refrain from doing any independent research or investigation into this case?
What is going on? Okay.
Everyone said yes or nodded affirmatively. Did anyone happen to see, hear, or read anything about this case since we left yesterday? Everyone said no or shook their head.
Hear ye, hear ye.
See that there's a juror who is not with us at this point. There are good and sufficient reasons for that juror to be excused. It's personal to that juror. Do not concern yourselves with it in any way. Okay, and we will move on. All right, your first witness, please, Mr. Lally.
Yes, Your Honor, the Commonwealth call Miss Jessica Hyde to the stand.
So I guess this is the quality we're gonna get. I think it's a Zoom or a call, right? Yeah, like a Zoom video and audio. I guess this is what we get now. All right. Audio's not as good. Video's not as good. Lord Almighty! How much?
The case that I'm hearing the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God.
I swear.
Thank you.
What's this? Oh, witness. Oh. Okay.
All right, whenever you're ready.
Ma'am, if you want that microphone is adjustable, you can put it pretty much anywhere you're comfortable with, okay?
Thank you.
Good morning.
Morning.
Could you please state your name and spell your last name for the jury?
Jessica Hyde, H-Y-D-E.
Your name and spell your last name for the jury.
Jessica Hyde,
H-Y-D-E.
I'm a digital forensics examiner. I own a digital forensics firm that does training, services, and research.
And the digital forensics firm that you own, what's it called?
Hexordia, Hexordia.
And how long have you had your own firm?
3 years.
Now, Ms. Hyde, if I could ask you to talk a little bit about your educational background and your work history. Starting with undergraduate, where did you go and what, if any, degree did you receive?
My undergraduate degree is a Bachelor of Science in Electronics Engineering Technologies. I was on active duty in the Marine Corps at the time, so I went to several schools. My final graduation was from ECPI. I'm going to ask you to slow down your speech a little bit.
Speak louder!
Absolutely.
We're cutting the mics off.
So my final graduation was from ECPI College of Technology. However, I attended several universities because I was on active duty at the time.
And following your undergraduate, where did you go from there?
From there, I went and completed my tour on active duty. I went into work in the field and eventually then did my master's in computer forensics from George Mason University.
And when about was it that you received your master's in computer forensics from George Mason?
I received my master's, I believe, 2014.
And as far as, you mentioned that you had started working a little bit post-military, but before going to grad school, is that right?
Correct. I started working in digital forensics in 2010.
And where did you begin when you started working in 2010?
I was a contractor for a company called American Systems, working at the Terrorist Explosive Device Analytical Center
legit. Okay.
called TDAC.
Oh,
and following sort of going forward to when you received your graduate degree, if you could speak a little bit about your work history since then.
Sure. So I continued to work at TDAC while I had completed my degree. That was doing digital forensic analysis on phones that were connected to improvised explosive devices. So most of the phones I received was post-blast, and I would recover data from that and analyze that. From there, once I had completed my degree, I went and worked in the regular private sector. I worked for Ernst & Young, now called EY. There I was one of their mobile forensics experts working a variety of cases, everything from insider threat and insider trading. Then I really missed doing more public service work, so I left to go to the National Media Exploitation Center, which is I worked there as a contractor under a company called Basis Technology. That organization supports 22 government agencies in the intelligence community, supporting the things that are either the highest priority or the things that other organizations can't support. So we were the center of excellence for the U.S. government in mobile exploitation, and I ran that team there.
Yeah. And then
from there, I can go from there. From there, I went and became the director of forensics for Magnet Forensics, which is a company that develops tools for digital forensics. So there I was in a position where I did a large amount of research into new artifacts, unsupported access to devices, etc. I was there for 5 years before starting my own firm.
And then what did you, I'm sorry, let me start again. As far as what, if any, teaching experience you had?
That is an excellent question. I've actually been an adjunct professor at George Mason University since 2016. I've taught 20 terms in their graduate program. I teach the mobile forensic analysis course in their digital forensics master's program.
In addition to your work and your teaching and all your training, are there any professional organizations related to your field that you're a member of?
Actually, several. I am a member of the Organizational Scientific Area Committee on Digital Evidence, which is a part of NIST, the National Institute of Science Technology. I am a member of the Scientific Working Group on Digital Evidence, also called SWIG-DE. I am the chair of a project called DFIR Review that does peer review of academic work that's done by practitioners in the form of blogs. I've been chairing that project since 2018, or when it started, with our first publications in 2019. I am the first VP at the International Executive Committee level of the High-Tech Crime Investigation Association, also called HTCIA, which I've been a member of since 2012, and I will ascend to, I've been elected, I'll ascend to president next September. I am also, I do a lot of volunteer work. I also am an associate member of the American Academy of Forensic Sciences, AAFS, and I just recently finished my term as an associate editor for Forensic Science International Digital Investigations, which is a peer-reviewed journal in the academic space of digital forensics, and I'm still a reviewer, but I stepped down from my duties as an associate editor.
Wow. Bringing me to my next question, what, if any, sort of articles or publications have you published in relation to
Great question. I've published a paper on the standardization of data recovery. I worked on that with Dr. Owen Casey and Dr. Nelson. That was published in Forensic Science International Digital Investigations Journal. I also was the second author on a paper related to the use of AI in digital forensics, artificial intelligence, and I've published numerous articles, blogs, white papers. I probably have published about 20 of those, but just speaking to the peer review work, there's 2.
When you say peer review, can you explain to the jury a little bit about what that means or what that process entails?
Absolutely. So a peer-reviewed work is when you have a novel piece of research that you then submit that novel, never been presented work to a journal. It then gets reviewed by numerous academic peers. It goes through cycles of revision where they ask more questions. On the standardization of file recovery paper, that process took about 14 months for it to be peer-reviewed by experts in the field, and then it is published in a journal.
So you've had both articles that you've authored that have been peer-reviewed and published, as well as you've performed the role of reviewer of other people's work?
Correct. I've performed in addition to the publications I've done, I reviewed at least 20 to 30 articles, both in a combination of support for Forensic Science International Digital Investigations Journal and DFIR review.
Now, Ms. Hyde, if you could explain to the jury when you say the term as far as digital forensics, what do you understand that term to mean with relation to what you do?
I would describe digital forensics as the analysis of data from any storage medium that can control data, be that a mobile phone, computer, or cloud, for the intention of that data intentionally being used for court.
And with reference to your firm, Hexordia, where is that located? What state?
We are headquartered in New York State, in Bridgeport, New York, which is outside of Syracuse. We also have an office location in the D.C. metro area in Tyson's Corner, but we have employees in 6 states.
And with respect to your duties and responsibilities in regard to your firm, what is it that you do?
Great question. So I do perform digital forensic analysis on cases. I currently work on 2 U.S. government contracts supporting 1 digital forensic analysis and 2 novel research and exploitation of mobile devices. So I'm named personnel on 2 contracts, and then I manage another 3. I also develop training for mobile forensics. My courses have been taken by people all over the country, and Hexordia also delivers that training. I also do research and presentations for journals, conferences, etc. So a combination of casework, education, and research.
Now, if I could turn your attention to May of 2023.
It's done a lot.
At some point during that month, were you contacted by the Norfolk District Attorney's Office in relation to this case?
Yes, on May 4th, I was contacted by Detective Tully via our website about this case.
And eventually, was there a contract that was executed and you agreed to do some work in relation to one specific area of this case?
Yes, a contract was executed on May 9th and work began on May 10th of 2023.
And as far as the specific information in relation to this case, what was it that you looked at? I'm sorry. Let me start by saying, what was it that you were asked to look at?
I was asked to look at 2 specific Google search terms that took place on January 29th.
And with regard to the information that was provided, and we'll get to that in a moment, but with respect to the question that was asked, was it a question that was posed, or were you asked to find some sort of specific response?
I was asked to look at the timelines and timestamps related to those Google searches.
Now, with regard to what, if anything, was then provided to you, or what, if anything, did you review in the course of your analysis?
I received 2 reports. I received the affidavit from Richard Green, and I received the report from Trooper, I don't want to butcher his name, but something along the lines of Nicholas Garino.
Perfect.
Oh, good.
And is it your understanding that Mr. Green was a person that was retained by the defense in this case?
Yes, I was aware of that.
So you received reports from the state police and a witness for the defense, correct?
That is correct.
In addition to those 2 reports, what, if anything else, did you receive in relation to your analysis here?
On May 10th, I received via U.S. Postal Mail a copy of the drive with data from a phone that was identified to me as belonging to Jennifer McCabe. It was a full file system extraction from a gray key.
Ooh, we're going there. We're going
when
there.
When you received that information, what, if anything, did you do with it?
The first thing I did with that data set after having been retained was I made a forensic copy. I used an ArcPoint Atrio to copy the data from that original disk, which was then placed in our safe, to our working copy drive.
And that ArcPoint Atrio, what is that?
It's a forensics tool that does extraction and duplication.
And then once that process was completed, what did you do from there?
I immediately verified the hash values of my new image to make sure that it matched the hash value of the original image.
And what is the hash value?
A hash value is an algorithmic numerical representation of the data. So when you have a hash value, that value is unique to a certain set of data. So when you have that same hash value matching, you're ensuring that your copy that you made was correct and not in any way damaged or corrupt.
And as far as matching those hash values, were you able to do so?
Yes, the hash values of both the copy I made to work from and the original matched. They also matched the document that came along with the drive stating the original hash value.
And then what did you do from there?
From there, I processed the image in several forensics tools. I used Celebrite Physical Analyzer. I used Magnet Axiom. I used a tool called ARTEX, A-R-T-E-X. I utilized a tool called iLeap, and I later used a tool called Sanderson Forensics SQLite, but I did not use that tool at this point.
Now, with reference to the tools that you used, that you just went through, are those fairly common tools, or are those tools that are commonly used within your industry?
Yes, they are commonly used digital forensics tools that are very standard for other forensics examiners to use on mobile exploitation.
And as far as those different types of tools, so I guess my question is, there were a variety of different tools that you used?
Correct.
And why were you using the different tools?
So different forensics tools have different capabilities and look at data a little bit differently. Phones have thousands of applications. If you look at the Apple Store or the Google Play Store, you can download a total of 6 million apps between the two. Commercial forensics tools, they can only support so many applications, so they each work and support different bits of data, so it's important to use multiple tools so you can see the results from different data sets and be able to compare those results and enhance those with manual analysis.
And with respect to using those sort of different variety of tools from Celebrite to Axiom to Artex, et cetera, is that something that you typically do as far as your normal process of conducting a forensic analysis?
Yeah, that's very, very typical for me to process with multiple tools to ensure that I'm getting the most complete interpretations from forensics tools. Of course, you go beyond that with your analysis, but it's absolutely pertinent to do that. I would run some of those tools before others because of speed, and so I can begin analysis while other tools are running.
If I could ask you just about the last one that you mentioned, just briefly, as far as the Sanderson tool.
Yes.
Can you explain to the jury sort of what that is and how that interplays with the other tools and analysis?
The Sanderson tool is meant to look at a specific type of data structure called a SQLite database. SQLite databases are very nuanced, and this particular tool allows you to take that database and explore it at a deeper level than the other forensics tools allow.
And just for the record, when you use that term as far as a SQLite database, how is that spelled?
It is capital SQL, lowercase I-T-E, and SQLite is also commonly pronounced as SQLite, so both pronunciations are acceptable.
Now, once you received the extraction, made the copy, and then ran it through of those variety of tools, what is it that you specifically were looking at, and what is it that you were trying to ascertain, or the question that you were trying to answer?
So in looking at that analysis, I was focused specifically on the data that took place on January 29th. So the first thing I did was I limited my search within those tools to that period, and I looked at the artifacts that they were parsing pertaining to Safari history, as Safari was the browser that had been in use at that time.
Now, in addition to looking at those search, what, if any, information were you looking at in relation to deletion?
I'm sorry, I could not hear you.
In addition to looking at those materials as far as those searches were concerned, what, if anything else, were you looking at regarding that data with respect to deletion?
I didn't hear the last word. With respect to?
Deletion.
Deletion. I apologize. Thank you. Yeah, so one of the things that was asked, one of the things that was actually in the affidavit from Richard Green was that it was stated that there was belief that one of the search terms had been deleted. So I was specifically looking at that search term to see if what the reason was for the suspicion of deletion. There is...
and thank you.
The tools denote things based on how they are running as an automatic process. The tools are designed to parse through large amounts of data to make it easier. So the tools will often flag certain data as recovered, and sometimes there is confusion between what recovery and deletion means. That actually was the subject of the paper I referenced earlier that I co-authored. And the tools are sometimes misinterpreted that that statement of recovery means deletion. So I was exploring that.
Now, you mentioned specifically there were 2 searches of interest that you were exploring. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And what were those 2 searches, and what, if any, information did you have in relation to those?
I had the information from the 2 reports that had been written in terms of what they found. And the 2 search terms, one was HOS, H-O-S, long to die in cold, and the other one was how long TI, die in CLKD.
And what, if any, information from your starting, if you could, walk the jury through as far as your analysis, what you first observed, and what your analysis consisted of as it evolved?
Absolutely. So when I first looked at it, some of the tools surfaced the data from a specific storage called the, just make sure I get the entire path for you, com.apple.mobile Safari plist. It is very common in mobile devices for it to look like a reverse domain name. Like you normally would go to a site like CNN.com. Typically, those names are like the opposite. So com.apple is going to be representative of a native Apple application. So this particular plist was related to that. A plist is, or called a property list, is a data structure that's unique to Apple devices. And there is data pertaining to Google search, not just Google searches, search history that's stored there. There's also, I found evidence of the search terms in Knowledge CDB. The Knowledge C database is an Apple database that is meant to store information about users so it can determine future functionality, what you're looking for, etc. So that's the Knowledge CDB. It's more of a system-level artifact. And then there was also, and these were the observed search terms, and most of the tools picked up both of those search terms in there. Not all tools did pick up the one that was from the wall, which was the instance of Hoslong to die in cold. That's how I'm pronouncing the HOS. If you would like me to clarify it a different way, that's fine. That particular search term was recovered from a SQLite database, the one I later explored, and Celebrite specifically demonstrated and showed that particular search term as a suspended state tab, and that's a really intricate artifact whenever we're ready to explore that. That is the one that was marked as recovered. So those were my initial findings, just looking at what the automated tools parsed. However, Celebrate was the tool that found that particular search term.
Now, you used a term in there as far as a wall or a write-ahead log file. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Can you please explain to the jury what your understanding of that term is based on your training experience?
Absolutely. This is a really interesting data structure, the way it works. So the way SQLite databases work is the data before being committed to the database, which is almost like an Excel spreadsheet if you think about that. Each table is like a page on an Excel spreadsheet. The data before going there goes kind of to almost like a text file, like if you were to have a doc of writing all the changes that need to happen to that Excel spreadsheet. And they're not made to that spreadsheet until it closes. So what happens is as you're doing things, either adding a website by searching for it, or closing a tab or deleting a text message in a SQLite database in general, both things you add are written to that text document or things you delete. So they all hang out there together. So it's any changes that are going to be made since you started using that application until it's closed, then they change there and then it reopens. So to make an analogy, if you're in a restaurant and you order some food, the food being the data, and you at the table being the table that the data is going to, when you request that data and you say, I'm adding it, it goes to the area where the waiter or waitress or server is going to grab it from, right? That warming station. That is almost like our write-ahead log. And so different tables are ordering food, and food is constantly being put there. If somebody, maybe their steak came out rare and it needs to be cooked more, when they send it back, it'll also go to that warming area. So you can see there that you've got things waiting to go out to the tables and things being sent back to the kitchen. So simultaneously, that storage area contains both the newest stuff waiting to go out and the stuff coming back. And that's really what a wall file winds up containing: your newest Google searches, your newest text messages, etc., as well as anything that you've been deleted, that you've said was deleted, because the reference in there is going to be delete this entry. And so then all of those don't happen until the application is closed and reopened. If the application's been closed, when we do the extraction, we actually don't get the wall file. We only get the wall file if at the time of extraction, that database had not been closed. So that just means that Safari in this instance was still running when the extraction was done. Most of you, when you use your phones, you leave the applications up. So because of that, we have a wall file, and so that wall file is going to contain both a data that's been requested to be deleted and new data. Now, when I say deleted in this instance, I don't mean like you as a user saying delete this old text message. What I mean when I say deleted in this instance is removed from the database. So when we're talking about something like a Safari tab, deletion from the database can occur because you closed the tab. We all open tabs when we use our browsers on our phone, and we all close them. And so closing in that instance would be a deletion in the database, but what that's doing is not a user requesting deletion. So I just want to be clear on that term.
And to that point, as far as, so when you say something has been deleted, specifically with reference to the write-ahead log or the wall file, that's not something that's necessarily initiated by the user themselves, correct?
Correct. And I think that's a common misconception.
It's 2:27 a.m., sir.
Your Honor, just in regard to a side issue, may we approach this briefly?
Sure.
Hell to the no. I hope they kind of try to break it down in layman's terms for us. She's highly qualified, very educated, but for the regular person, I'm having a hard time following, and I'm into like computers and stuff like that. But basically, the one of the big things for a lot of people with Karen Reed has been that whole 2:27 a.m. search. I'm trying to find the highlights here. Hyde is here to testify about the How Long to Die in the Cold search by Jennifer McCabe. from what I'm getting, from what I'm understanding, you guys can tell me if I'm interpreting this wrong or not. I think where she's getting to is that, what's that weird beeping? I don't know if that's Zoom, I guess. I think she's trying to get at that the tab was opened. There was a tab open from 2:27 that morning when Jen searched something else. But at early in the morning when Jen claims that Karen told her to search it, because she opened up the old tab, it showed that it was 2:27.
Your testimony regarding something within your field called an artifact, is that correct?
That's correct.
And can you explain to the jury what you understand that term to mean?
An artifact is any trace that's left behind by any action on a digital piece of data.
And can you give the jury an example of sort of what an artifact might be or what an artifact might look like?
Absolutely. So an artifact of you sending a text message would be that we would find the database where text messages are stored, and inside that database we would see the time and date that you sent it, who it received and who it was sent to. It might not be their name, it might be a numerical representation that we have to tie to another database. Then we would have the message itself. It may be in plain text or it may be encrypted or encoded. And then we may have something called a blob, and that would be a reference to data that's too large to store in the database, so it would be elsewhere. So that would be if your text message included, let's say, a picture or a video.
Now, in regard to your analysis and your ultimate conclusions, in this case, you wrote a report, is that correct?
That is correct.
And within that report, there are a couple of tables and a specific figure, is that correct?
That is correct.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, if I could, I'd like to publish to the jury Table 1 from Ms. Hyde's report.
Okay.
Ms. Hyde, do you have a copy of your report with you as well?
I do.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, just because I fear it may be a little difficult to see from where she's seated, if she could refer to the table in her report.
Thank you.
Ms. Hyde, what's up on the screen, and I'm sorry, there should be a laser pointer on the desk before you. Do you see that?
I do. Oh, yes.
So using that laser pointer, if you could draw the jury's attention, or direct the jury's attention, I should say, with respect to what are we looking at in this specific case?
Absolutely. So this table here has a couple of different elements that I'm showing in terms of what searches were searched where, and when, and what source of data they came from. So if we look at this first search, I have them in the timestamp order that is associated with the artifact. I want to clarify that we need to discuss the meanings of these timestamps as we go. So this first one that you're going to see is, and I'm just going to reference my paper because of the size, is 0227 and 40 a.m. So that's 2 o'clock in the morning, 27 minutes and 40 seconds. And it is a search for the term HOF, long to die in cold. And that a timestamp in this instance is from the browser state DB, which is right here. The browser state DB is an artifact that speaks to when tabs are moved. So when you're using your browser and you open different tabs, you may have a search that this time pertains to the time that that tab moved. It could be lots of things. It could be you switch tabs. It could be you close the tab. It could be you minimize the application. Depending on the version of iOS, what can be that browser state of the tab that changes this timestamp differs. But what's very special to know about this timestamp is that that is not the time necessarily of this search. If a browser is opened and a single search is made, those will match. However, as long as that browser hasn't been closed, moved to the background, etc. If that browser has had any activity that happens to that tab in terms of application closing, minimizing, this can update. That is what that timestamp is for. This search term is always going to be the most recent search term in that tab. That means the last item that was opened in that tab was HOF long TI die in cold. We cannot tell by this particular artifact what time that search occurred. It is a high likelihood that that tab was opened at this time because there was another search that occurred at 2:27 in the morning. It was a sports site. I cannot pronounce it. It began with an
She's
H.
cooperating with Jen McCabe's
Sports. Hakmak. Okay, thank you very much for the pronunciation. Hakmak Sports. There were a couple of searches pertaining to that done immediately after, but it appears that that's when this tab was opened and the first search done there. So this search we know was done by this, and we know that it was the last search in the tab because it comes from this source, the browser StateDB, and that means that particular timestamp and search pertains to what has happened with the tab. And that's what allows you to open your Safari browser on your iPhone and then open it on your iPad or your Mac and have the same tab. That's the function there. This search here, this is really interesting. So at 6:22:49 a.m., we have an entry in CacheDB that is specifically, if we dig into this URL, this is an Apple suggested term. So when you use a browser and you start to type a search you've never typed before, the browser tries to help you and say, are you searching for this? So as the user began to type the phrase in the immediate search after, which is how long TI to die in CKLD, this particular suggestion came up, indicating in all likeliness that the search term being typed had not previously been searched, because Apple suggested, instead of a previous search, it suggested how long does it take to digest food. After how long to digest food had been suggested, the user then has a search at that time, 6:23:51, for how long TI die in cold, and that is coming from the mobile Safari plist, the com.apple.mobile Safari plist I mentioned earlier, and the search is also shown in the knowledge CDB. That's commonly what we would expect. We would expect that search to be in both of those, both that plist and that database. Then the...
Can I stop?
Yeah, absolutely.
As far as the expectation of that being in both of those, the plist and the other database, why is that?
That is because the search is not being tracked not only by the plist for Safari, but also by the system itself to be able to do that predictive coding. So in the future, when you start to type how long, it gives you what you searched last time.
And with respect to that, how long it takes to digest food, based on your analysis, was that a search term that was ever entered into this phone?
Correct. The source of that, if you look at this first line where it says cdn2 smooth.apple.com, that's what indicates that this is an Apple suggested term, not a user input term.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you. If you could please continue with the next.
Absolutely. The next search that was done immediately after the search at 6:23, the next search was how long TI die in CLKD. Again, we see that search both in the knowledge CDB.
I hope, like, I'm sorry to pause, but I hope at some point, I don't know if they're going to be able to do it, that, like, she kind of, I feel like to drive it home, they kind of need some layman's terms, like, for people to understand. But she's basically corroborating Jennifer McCabe's story. And she's a very highly qualified person. Highly. I just hope they can kind of, you know, break it down a bit. I don't know.
And the mobile Safari plist. And then we have, so we see it in both databases. Then, so that's how long to die in cold. Sorry, I was on the next line. Then at 6:24, we get the next search, which is HOS long to die in cold. And we have that search again, both in the knowledge CDB and the plist. If I were timelining this based on activity as opposed to timestamps associated, what I see here is the beginning of a user typing a search, Apple making a suggestion of how long to digest food. The user does not take that suggestion and rather inputs how long TI die in CKLD. They then make a second search of HOS long to die in cold. That search winds up being the last search in the tab, and that is why we see it in the this particular browser state DB. It should be noted that this is in one of those wall files.
I'll update
and
the
not
title,
raw
guys.
file.
I'll update it. I'll update the title. Give me a second.
And so as far as sort of toward the top there, and I know we'll get a little more to this in a moment, but as far as that reading at 2:27:40 in the morning, as far as the timestamp associated with the search, why would that timestamp be associated with it if it's searched later on in the morning?
Because that table isn't showing the time of that search. It's showing the state of the database. So it's saying that the last time that tab was touched, moved to the background or foreground, was 2:27 a.m. The website, as you search more websites in the tab, that gets updated. So the current state that this is showing is that the tab was moved to the background or opened or some action for the tab at 2:27 a.m. when the Hawkmock Sports, I got it right, Hawkmock Sports website was visited. And then once the Hawkmock Sports website was visited, that tab was in continual use. There are other searches and activity that happens. We don't see that happens eventually. This search gets made at 6:23 a.m., this search at 6:24 a.m. That winds up being the last search in the tab. And because it's the last search in the tab, that's what the final update is and the final status.
So when you say last search in the tab,
they switched the cameras too.
in reference to what time specifically?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
That question, let me rephrase. So as far as the 2:27 tab is closed and then another search done at 6:23, is that correct?
2:27 isn't necessarily when the tab was closed. That's in my report. I say that it's undetermined because there's a lot of things that can cause that timestamp to be there, including tab being moved, tab being minimized. I don't know exactly what caused the tab to get that particular entry, but it is not, that timestamp is not indicative of the time of the search or any URL that's visited there. That time is indicative of movement of the tab, and the search is the most recent search. So they update at different times.
So I guess my question is, as far as from what your analysis is here, is there any use of that tab between, or is there any evidence or artifact of use of that tab between the 2:27 timestamp and the 6:23 timestamp?
So the fact that that timestamp exists at 2:27, combined with the fact that the only existence of this search is at 6:24, means that yes, that particular tab was used after 2:27 when the Hawkmock Sports was searched. I apologize for not being familiar with that name.
That's absolutely fine. Yeah. Now, if I could ask you at this point, as you had talked about one in particular database having sort of an intricate artifact. If you could remind the jury of what that is, and if you could explain that.
So the artifact that needed a little bit more explanation and digging was this browser state tab, and that's because if you look at the end of this file name, you'll see it's a db-wall. That means it wasn't in the regular database, it was in the write-ahead log. And to Celebrate's credit, that tool actually parsed the write-ahead log and displayed it where the other tools did not. If you remember before, we talked about write-ahead logs, and we talked about the fact that they can contain data that is both removed from a database and data that's not yet to be committed. And this database, we do not know which that is, but what I did was I manually went through, and that's in the figure, I manually went through and reconstructed the wall files using the Sanderson SQLite tool. And in reconstructing the wall files, I found many. I'll tell you exactly how many if I can refer to my notes. Can I refer to my notes? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Approximately 16 instances of that existing in the wall file. Now, what's interesting in that figure is that each entry of something in a write-ahead log gets a unique identifier. So it gets a number, right, that makes it unique. Just like each one of us has a phone number that's unique to us, each entry in the database
sorry,
that
guys.
starts from the
She
write ahead
killed
law
it.
gets its own unique
It's a little bit hard to follow, but she killed it. And we haven't even gotten to the Cellbrite testimony yet.
identifier. And that unique identifier in this instance in all 16 entries in the wall file is the same, which shows that it's truly only one search, not multiple searches for that search term in terms of what exists in the wall file. So that's the first piece of nuance there, that it only truly was searched one. And you would have to really dig into that wall file to expose that, but I think it was pertinent to know how many times this was searched.
I'm sorry.
Yes, please.
Stop you there for one moment. And Your Honor, with the court's permission, if I could ask Mr. to publish Table 2 now.
Okay. Oh, wonderful.
It could be a game changer for some. I don't know.
Sure.
I think it's a
Thank
big
you, Your
deal.
Honor.
Some people don't. Oh, I don't know if they'll play the voicemail. I hope they
Do you
do.
recognize what's up on the screen?
I do. That is Table 2 of my report on page 4.
And if you could, again, using the latest report that you have before you, direct the jury's attention to what, if anything, is significant is depicted in Table 2 up on the screen.
So Table 2 here is designed to share with us what each of the locations that can potentially have Safari data, what kind of data they hold. And one of the things that many of us are interested in sometimes is, do these things hold our private searches, like if we're in incognito mode in Google or private searching here. So this table denotes if we're seeing private or non-private searches, if it includes tabs that are open or closed, so that we know which artifacts are giving us what kind of information, as well as what some of the associated timestamps mean.
Maybe the defense will have something to nullify. We'll see.
So this was decided as a guide to...
But if they don't cross-examine her, I'm done. They have to cross-examine this lady.
Really understand Table 1 more in depth. So this first one here, this refers to the History DB wall file.
The thing that, I'm sorry, I'll stop pausing, but the thing that kind of sucks is, like, I guess now because they have to switch cameras, I guess, like they're using like Zoom, we can't see like what's on the screen. I would have loved to see like what she's talking about as well, like on the screen, the 227 stuff, blah, blah, blah. You can't see nothing, unfortunately.
File. And
This is a
that
big
file has
deal. We need to
non-private
see.
searches.
But I guess as long as the jury can see, you know, but
Includes closed tabs, and the visit time there is the time that a user reopened the tab. We don't always have the artifacts we want, and in this instance, we did not have that particular one. Then we have the Safari Tabs DB. This has private tabs and non-private tabs, and it shows only tabs that have not been closed. So this is an active tabs database. The next one we have is the Browser State DB and its wall file. And this is the one we were referencing where that we keep talking about where that 2:27 a.m. number is coming from. So this one is going to be non-private searches. It includes closed tabs, which is important, and the last viewed time. So when an item went to the background. So it's about the tab, not about the search. That's probably the most important demarcation. And one of the issues here is when the tools parse the data, they call the columns what the columns are called raw in the data. Those don't necessarily tell us what they mean. We have to verify and validate what they actually mean. So when I'm saying last _ view time, that's what the database name is, not necessarily the actual function.
Jackson taking notes. He's gonna have to come back. But I feel like she's almost as strong as Tully. I know some people don't agree with that. I feel like I was joking. Tully's like AI, like they kept trying. This lady, they're gonna have to try, but I wonder. I don't know if she's gonna waver or not. But Tully was very stoic.
Or not what we would presume it to mean. The next one, the last one here, is the Mobile Safari P-list, and this one actually tells us, the date here gives us the time that something was queried reliably.
Now, if I could ask you, if you could just explain to the jury as far as these SQ or SQLite databases, how exactly do they work and what, if any, relation do they have with regard to data and information with the write-ahead log or the wall file?
So So SQLite databases work and function as a storage for anything that the phone may need to reference later or that you're doing. They're stored for a variety of things. Most of your third-party apps use SQLite databases, and multiple applications do. So SQLite gets information in, and it allows for that information to be updated, added to, or removed from. So data that's in that situation, that it's sitting in the database, that is what we refer to as live data. Then data that is waiting to be put into the database, that is sitting in the wall, or it has been requested to be removed, that is what's in the write-ahead log, and we call that non-live data because it's not in the active database. So when you're using an application and it's putting that data to that temporary storage area, that wall, that write-ahead log, what happens is then when you request data by going into your contacts, let's say, and looking at the people who are stored in your contacts, right? Your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, all those people. When you're looking, your best friend, you're looking up their numbers, that data is all stored in that database. So when you add someone, it does that entry to the wall. Now, so if I just added Sally, how do I know that Sally's in there, right? Well, what happens is the interpretation of the SQLite database goes to the wall, checks and sees if it's in the wall, and uses the wall to incorporate it together to present you everything as if it's in there. Then when you close the application, you close contacts. You don't just put it away like go switch apps. You actually close it. When it closes, all of those changes get committed. So now the items that you've requested to be deleted, that contact you don't like anymore, that X, whatever, their data is no longer in there. The data that you've added is now in there, and now that's all live. Sometimes we can get more complex and recover some of those items that are left over because they are marked for deletion but still sit in the database, or they're sitting on a page that is no longer active in the database. So there's a lot of places that we can recover data from in addition to the wall that exists in the database after something has happened, but that isn't pertinent to this particular use case.
Now, as far as that sort of interplay between the SQLite database and the wall, what if any sort of, as a forensic examiner, what if any sort of complexities arise out of it?
Oh, one of the biggest complexities is the assumption that because data exists in the write-ahead log, that a user took an action to delete it. When I teach at the university, when I peer review my colleagues' reports, this is one of the most common mistakes I see. And it's really because some of the forensics tools to indicate that the file has been recovered, they put a big X on it. And that was actually a big subject of that standardization of.
This is not even Cellbrite yet. Supposedly Cellbrite's going to corroborate what she said. So I don't know. They would have to say that all. I mean, we'll give the defense a chance. They would have to say all these people involved, even these multiple different experts and cell phone people, all these or search data people.
The file recovery paper I referenced earlier, and it speaks about all kinds of files, but actually has a special section on SQLite specifically because that nuance is often missed by examiners.
I hope she's strong.
Now, in reference to that being marked as deleted or misinterpreted as deleted by a user, is there a specific tool of the tool
I'm never searching in show on Safari again.
Versus
Arms, thank you for the 10.
That has that information that others may not.
So Celebrite and Magnet Axiom, both Celebrite Physical Analyzer and Magnet Axiom, both have file system viewers that then have SQLite database viewers. I would say that those SQLite database viewers have more of a basic function in terms of looking at data in the live database. They don't allow for deep analysis of the write-ahead logs, which is why in my analysis I use the specialized Sanderson forensic browser for SQLite.
And so when you see something like that in a Celebrite extraction, is there, what if any further analysis do you do to sort of look behind?
Absolutely. Anytime I see an entry marked as recovered, and I'll use the term recovered instead of deleted, by Celebrite, and the source is a write-ahead log, I would go and begin reconstruction of the write-ahead logs using Sanderson's forensics tool to get to the meat of, is this something that it has been deleted, or is this something that has yet to be written to the database? You can often see remnants of that based on how many unique entries there are of it. What the other thing we do is, so I mentioned that when we have the WAL file, it hasn't been applied. So if I take the SQLite database and the WAL file out, and I make another copy of them, so I've got one copy I'm looking at Sanderson, and I take another copy and I actually open it, what's cool is it does the commits. So then I have a copy of the database that actually has all those changes. So I now know if the entry was deleted by just comparing the two. So I can do that analysis by basically making the database think it was reopened, by reopening it with a non-forensics tool in that instance, just to see what it would look like in real life. And then I can look at the difference between the two and determine if something was marked for deletion or addition.
Now, are there different reasons from your training, your experience, and your knowledge of these systems? Is there different reasons for why it's your conclusion that that particular search or those search terms were not deleted by the user specifically?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of reasons. First, the way tabs work from a functional perspective, you can close a tab, but there's not really a user deletion function for the tab. And there was no evidence of other deletion, if that makes sense. It doesn't make sense that the term was, I don't see evidence that the term was searched prior to that 624 time.
Wow.
So since the term wasn't searched prior to that 0624 time, the existence of the tab being closed would not mean that that search was deleted, because then it would be evident in the other databases pertaining to the actual search, not the databases pertaining to the state of the tab. Is there a possibility that the tab was closed? Absolutely, but that is not a deletion. Secondly, an existence in the WAL file, as we mentioned, could be that it's something new, not something that was deleted. So just its mere existence in the WAL file doesn't mean it's deleted. I should say that same X in the tools, you have to check the file, because it could be from a free list or a free page, in which case, I know we didn't go into those details, nuance of SQLite databases that actually doesn't pertain to this. However, those would be truly deleted items. So there's other places where we would expect potential recovery, not necessary in this instance. And you can have something that's in a WAL file and deleted without being in those other locations. Just stating that its existence in the WAL file itself doesn't mean deletion. But there are other SQLite things that would clearly indicate deletion that aren't applicable to this particular search.
Now, Your Honor, with the court's permission, if I could ask Ms. Gilman to publish Figure 1 from Ms. Hyde's report.
Chris!
Thank you, Your Honor.
Wow.
And again, Ms. Hyde, you recognize what's up on the screen?
Yes, this is Figure 1. This is a direct screen capture from Sanderson's tool from the
we can't see anything. They're not showing it.
Limited to the Haas long to die in cold search.
If you could, using that laser pointer, again, direct your attention to what, if anything, significant or notes that you observed in using the Sanderson tool that's depicted in Figure 1.
Absolutely. So all of these searches are the exact same term, and here we have the order index, and here we have that last view time. And by looking at the last view time, which is the raw title of that artifact for the timestamp we were looking at, these are identical. This, and more importantly, are even the actual UUID for these are identical, which is right here. Now, the offsets are different, and what that means is that this is just appearing several times in the write-ahead log. It has moved, as the database has moved data, through the write-ahead log to different positions, but has in every instance the same unique identifier, meaning that all of these entries are the same entry, just shown multiple times in the same database.
And to that point, as far as the multiple times that it's listed within there, what, if any, relationship does that have to how many times it was actually searched by a user?
Well, that UID shows that in this particular instance that it existed once in the last time in the tab, because this artifact, it does not tell us how many times something was searched by the user. This artifact is limited just to the tab. We would look at the mobile Safari plist, which has one entry for this timestamp, or knowledge CDB, which also only has one entry for this search. Those two locations are where we would determine how many times it had been searched, as opposed to this location, which could tell us that if there were multiple entries, but there is only one. But since this is limited to just the last search that's showing in a tab, it isn't a good source to say how many times was it searched, just not this particular artifact.
But from other artifacts, you were able to determine that?
Absolutely. You can determine that from both Mobile Safari plist and Knowledge CDB.
And I'm sorry, I jumped in there just as far as turn your attention back to figure one. What, if anything else, significance do you know in that?
That's really what's of significance, is that it is the same entry there multiple times, and we can tell by the unique identifier that it is the exact same entry also. And although it's the same search term and the same timestamp, it's only one instance of it, just it's stored in the database multiple times at multiple offsets.
Now, from the timestamp associated with that depicted in this figure, what, if anything, can you say as to or what, if anything, were you able to conclude from your analysis as to the time that the website was viewed?
Well, I guess I should really clearly, for people who may not be familiar, that doesn't look like a normal time, right? That's because this is an Apple WebKit timestamp, so we actually convert it to a regular time. But when you look at this number raw, you can actually see that it's consistent throughout. Even though you don't know what it is. But if we put it into a decoder, this particular timestamp is where we're getting January 29th, 2022 at 02:47 a.m. And to be clear, just for real clarity, when we actually translate this timestamp, it's in universal time constant, not in local time, but for the sake of conversationalists, I'm using the local time here as opposed to the time in the universal time constant, which is how this artifact is particularly stored.
Now, with your analysis, is there some kind of testing that you conduct, or can you explain to the jury sort of what that is and how it relates to your analysis there?
Absolutely. So with this artifact and being able to determine what this timestamp really means, I actually did quite a bit of testing, which is fun, but that's okay. So we went ahead and took a jailbroken iPhone, and the purpose of a phone being jailbroken is we're bypassing the security protocol so we can monitor the data and its storage in real time and bring the data through. We did this manually in terms of pulling the data out, and we also did multiple forensic images at different stages. We manipulated tabs, we did some Google searches, and then we would close tabs, move tabs, and perform several different searches that we scripted out first, what we were testing, and then checked to see how that timestamp was moving. We even did some really interesting things where we tried...
Sorry, objection.
Yes.
Okay.
Sidebar. Who's calling? The defense is calling for it? I don't know, or was that Lally? I don't know. Yeah, this lady's kind of funny. She's like, oops, what? I don't know. I'm very curious to see how she will fare with the defense. But she's very, knowledgeable. She's very knowledgeable. I mean, nobody can take that away. But maybe they'll be able to try to poke something into it, I don't know. We'll see. But she's a... Yeah. And the thing is, if they get Cellbrite to come in too, and he says something along the same lines or whatever, it's I think it's kind of devastating. Even with the C word. The C, Proctor. Dr. Shapiro.
I'm sorry. So you had, I think when you were talking about some of the testing that you had conducted, use the term we. There are other individuals that worked on this particular assignment.
I had somebody peer review and test my testing, so they didn't work on the case. But as I was testing, one of my team members just validated that I was following my test plan. That's just normal practice that we use peer review.
So the testing that you were testifying about is testing that I
conducted, correct. But I had peer review by my team member on the script I had made to do my testing. So, and I use when I do testing, I'm following the NIST guidelines for data set generation and testing that's outlined by OSAC, which ironically, I should disclose I'm a co-author on.
And then, if you could, I'm sorry, Ms. Hyde, just continue as far as your testing.
Absolutely.
Your testing.
Yeah, so then populated the device and looked at all of the different data that came back from the different states while it was jailbroken. And the changes that happened, what I was saying was interesting is then tied it to a Mac and saw how the browser state changed if we changed the browser and the tab on a Mac and how that would affect it. And because we could see the differences, and by we, I mean that I had my testing peer reviewed, because I could see the differences of what the data looked like when I was altering it both in the Mac and on the phone, I was getting differences in those timestamps and those different conditions. So in other words, I could get a timestamp that showed in the browser state DB that was earlier than the current search by a variety of means, including manipulating the tabs, closing them, opening them, switching which one was in proper view forward, as well as looking at that tab on an external device, including a Mac and an iPad on the same account.
Now, throughout the course of your work, I think you alluded to it earlier in your testimony as far as your experience is concerned. You've had occasion to work both as a forensic extractions forensic investigator.
Yes.
As well as working also in research and development. Is that correct?
Correct.
And so, from the R&D side, what, if any, role does that play as far as your analysis in general terms and your analysis here when it came to some of the devices or some of the things, the tools that you were implementing?
I believe that my experience in research, development, and reverse engineering throughout my career pertaining to artifacts, of course, influences and my analysis processes in terms of wanting to ensure I understand how things work. I think it actually gives me a better understanding in many ways of how data moves through devices, as well as how understanding why the tools parse and represent data the way they do, in terms of the fact that they are presenting the data as they parse it using the proper algorithms to dissect that data and determine what it is based on testing and knowledge. So I think it actually influences in a positive way the depth that I go through in my analysis.
You had mentioned earlier in your testimony that you had reviewed both Trooper Garino's report as well as an affidavit from Mr. Green. Is that correct?
Correct.
And with regard to the affidavit from Mr. Green, what, if any, issues, of course, of significance did you observe in his analysis?
In Mr. Green's analysis, there is a conclusion that is drawn that a search occurred at 02:47 a.m. on January 29th, based on the artifact recovered from browser state DB that Celebrite parses. And there are two errors with that. The assumption that that is the time of the search is a misunderstanding of the browser state DB artifact, because that artifact is not the time of search, it's the time of movement of the tab, as well as the statement that that it was deleted due to the demarcation of Celebrite as recovered.
And based on the totality of your analysis, your testing, and everything that you looked at in this case, what, if any, conclusions did you come to?
My conclusion is that there was a search at 02:47 a.m. for Mock Sports. That browser was in use, and there were continual searches due through the night. The phone was, I do agree with Mr. Green's findings that the phone was in use at that time at 0227. Later, the phone a web search is done at 6:23 a.m. For how long, at that moment, Apple produces a suggestion for how long to digest food. The search is instead completed with how long TI, die, and CKLD at 6:23. A new search is conducted at 6:24 of HOS, long to die in cold, Haas long to die in cold. That search is then the last search that is made in that particular tab. And that's my conclusion.
What, if any, conclusion did you come to in regard to items being deleted pertaining to those artifacts you were looking for?
In regards to those artifacts pertaining to those search terms, I had no evidence of deletion.
Have a moment, Charlie?
Yes.
So she was, to me, I believe she was contesting the defense's witness, that he interpreted that the search was open, but she's saying that's not what it was. She searched whatever that school thing was at that time, but because I think the tab was left open at 6-something in the morning when she went to actually search it, because she says Karen told her to search it, it propagated the previous time, but it actually wasn't at that time. Butt searches. Butt dial. Oh, man, oh, man. I wonder what the defense, what they gonna do for Jessica. Are they gonna come for her? Are they gonna discredit her? Will they challenge her? Jessica Hyde. I know, unfortunately, this is all we have to work with. I wish we had better camera. It was a mess this morning with the jurors, I guess. I don't know what happened. One person left. I don't know if they said it was personal issues or what they said, but one person was dismissed. Oh boy, they changed the cameras again. No! I think they... What the... What happened? Amazing. Oh, we can go live. Oh, amazing. Okay. Butt hang up. Butt camera. What the... They taking a break? Or no, it's 11:44. Let's see. Some people on Twitter, they feel confident about the cross. I guess we'll have to see. They say wait till the cross. All right. We'll see for the cross examination. We'll see if they can pull it off. They didn't do it with Tully. They didn't do it with Carrie Roberts. But some people are saying, well, maybe they'll call her Carrie Roberts when the defense starts. We'll see if they do. People are they feel very, very strongly about it. Kim says, I still don't know what to believe with this case. I don't know if we'll ever know exactly what happened. He deserves justice. This is heartbreaking. Some people were very kind of caught, still in the middle. I was in the middle for a while. I was like undecided, but like once I started seeing more and more witness testimony, my feelings started to change. I don't know. This might be one of the most divisive cases I've covered. It's crazy. I guess. Seems like it. A lot of people disagree. And there's I think there's more people on that feel Karen had nothing to do with it. I think there's a larger portion of that, but maybe somewhat the tide is changing a little bit. It's hard to say. Ricky, what do you want? He wants to get on the table because there's these eggs. I ate half of the eggs. I didn't eat all the eggs earlier. And he's trying to get up. He wants to get up here just so he can try to sneak these eggs. But they're seasoned, and Ricky and his stomach, I don't want him pooping all over the place. His stomach, he has like a very he's like a geriatric dog, even though he's 2 or 3. So I don't want him having an accident, You gotta watch what he eats. Even his diet, like he has this I guess special food type of thing. So not to It's like a GI food, so it doesn't upset the stomach. Herbs, you know, when I don't know if that was the turning point for me. When I saw that interview she did and the verbiage that she used, I thought it was so weird. Like, who says that? I thought it was weird. The interview was so. She should have never did that interview. But that's not something the jurors would take into account anyway. How dope would that be if they played it during the courtroom? People, I don't know if they will or not. I don't know. That would have been interesting to see in the courtroom, but I don't know if they will. Also, the voicemail, I don't know if they're going to play it or not. People mentioned the voicemail. Mandy, I've mentioned this multiple times over the last 2 weeks. Appreciate that. Thank you for the 5. But people miss, because I'm streaming for long hours, so I know some people are not going to see what I say. If you look at my Twitter, you know. I believe she's involved. But the more and more I cover, like, watch this, we watch it together. I don't know that they can prove, like, premeditated. So I think there's second degree murder and there's manslaughter. Like, maybe they'll get her for manslaughter. I don't think maybe she did it. I don't know. I don't think she did it on purpose. I don't know. It's so hard to say. I think that she's involved somehow, but a lot. I think even most of my audience, like 70%, I think disagree. I think she has something to do with it. At first, I was like, damn, it's just weird, and the investigation, the solo cups. You know, now we got Proctor, Dr. Shapiro. And a lot of the witnesses just had all this messed up stuff that were like, I was like, why? Like, why? You know, like, that I get that. I understand that from people's perspective. But I feel like it's almost overwhelming at a certain, the DNA, the search. Like, once you start dismantling some of the biggest things, this lady dismantled and disagreed with the 2:27 a.m. search. That was one of the biggest. They had merch. People were getting that How's Long to Die and Nicole tattooed. I'm just kidding. They didn't tattoo it, but not that I've seen. This was one of the biggest things. That's what, if they can dispel the prosecution, like all this stuff, and it's a lot of different things. Even if you want to say it's circumstantial, is this still circumstantial? I don't know. They had DNA, they got the hair, I don't know. But like, I always think, and some people kind of question me, like, oh, why do I keep mentioning Alex Murdaugh? And because I mentioned him because I remember that trial. A lot of people thought there's no way he's.
Do you think she's a guilty or innocent?
A lot of people thought there's no way he's going to be found guilty. And it's, some people too on Twitter, it's really on Twitter. They're like, "Oh, I'm going to go watch a real attorney." Well, one, I never said I was an attorney, but that's totally fine too. But some of these attorneys, I don't trust the things that they're saying. I think some of these people are just entertaining shit. Like I mentioned, there was some YouTuber that some people reached out to me and they told me this person doesn't even think what they're saying, but they're just saying it because they know their audience wouldn't want them to feel. They know their audience mostly believes that she had no involvement. So behind the scenes, this person allegedly is saying one thing, but to everybody else, they're like lying about it. Like, why would you do that? It's just weird to me. I think some of these lawyers are like that too. And some of these lawyers I was watching with the Alex Murdaugh thing, some of these people were like swearing up and down. Now, I was surprised too how fast they came back with Alex Murdaugh, and how fast they came back with a guilty verdict. I was like, damn, because I did think like it is circumstantial. But I also think that some people, unless you've seen it happen on video, then there's reasonable doubt. Like some people just think it's just like that, and it's not. You can go off of circumstantial evidence with enough evidence or circumstantial details. I think a lot of these people, some of them have never done jury duty. Jury duty is not this online Twitter fantasy. It's way different when you're sitting in person. So I don't believe some of these lawyers. To be honest with you. it's just like a doctor. Sometimes I've met some really incredible doctors, I've met some incredible nurses, but then sometimes you got to get a second opinion. or just go somewhere else, or you're feeling this, you're feeling that, and you're really sick and you're throwing up, or you're sore, you got whatever. No, you're fine, sir. Okay, I'm going to deny what my body's telling me and accept it, and God knows, I don't know, a month later something happens to me and I'm sick and really, whatever. The YouTuber thing, I kind of had a feeling, but I didn't know that they felt she was guilty. I knew which way they swung, even though they kept trying to deny it and pretend. But I didn't know that they actually felt she was guilty. I mean, if you feel like that, just say it. I mean, and then we disagree. It's really hot on Twitter, I get, like, we disagree, but why would you? I don't know. Oh, somebody, I think, was it last night? Somebody was telling me to go come to Boston to show up. I'm like, what? Like, why don't you come to the courtroom and express your opinion? I'm like, why would I go to the courtroom? You think that the judge and the attorneys are going to have a sit down with me? And we're going to do, why would I fly out to Boston? They're like, oh, come see me. Come see me. I'm like, what? I do worry about the jury. Like, if they come back guilty, I don't know if they will, but if they do, I worry a little bit about their safety, or are they afraid, if they rule against what the majority, I mean, how do they not see the crowds of people outside, and dressing up and all the signs? Like, imagine, I don't know if they're afraid. Are they afraid to go against, I don't know. Woody? What's going on with Woody? Shylock says, that expert totally lost me. I don't know 100% that search at 227 didn't help at all. I feel like, and I keep referencing Alex Murdaugh. Ricky. I feel like Alex Murdaugh, like the prosecution too, kind of had like this uphill. It was kind of like hard to follow. Sometimes it was kind of hard to follow. And at the very end, I think they had one witness, like an expert witness, that he like broke down everything. The timeline. I think there was like some video. The kettle video killed Alex's case. And Alex killed his case too when he testified, I think. But there was one witness like at the very end that kind of put everything together into perspective. I don't know if they're going to, maybe the prosecution's going to have something like that. I feel like the prosecution is doing the slow, methodical game. I think. I don't know. And with Alex, I'll never forget. I have to try to find the timestamp one day. I don't know, anybody that watched the Alex Murdaugh trial, do you remember, this was crazy. They had some witness that literally threw a cell phone in his office, and he's like, and the defense tore him apart. That's how he conducted his test of like Alex, I think, throwing the phone out of his car. This guy didn't drive a car. He didn't try to simulate it. He just threw a phone in his office. Anybody remember that shit? That was so funny. I was like, what the hell? Like, what? Dr. Kinsley, I met that guy in person. He's a really nice guy. I met him at CrimeCon. Really, I didn't get to talk to him much, but he was really, really nice. The armpit guy killed me, too. And there was a lot of argument in the chat. Some people disagree. Some people agree. It was so funny. We were going back and forth. The armpit method. This guy, this doctor, was he a coroner or a medical examiner or whatever? This guy literally slides his finger under somebody's armpit to determine the time of death. I was like, what? Because I guess, I don't know, he didn't have the thermometer or he didn't do the, I think what they do too is like this rectal thing. A lot of the times to get the most accurate temperature, I guess, they'll put somebody like thing in the rectum. This guy, it was so funny. He just stuck his finger. When I was hearing the details, I almost imagine him like sticking his finger in the guy's, or whatever, the victim's armpit, and like licking his finger or something. He didn't say that. He didn't do that. But I was like, how is he determining? He's just how? How is that even accurate? That was crazy. Is it over? I don't know what's happening. Let me check Twitter. Let me see if there's some of the reporters in the the courtroom that can give us some details. Let me see here. There's one lady that I've been following, Susan, which me and her disagree, but I appreciate her keeping like updates. There's a few people in the courtroom updating stuff. Or Sue. Her name is Sue. Let me see if there's any. Did she say anything? I'm out of court for the day. Oh, she's done for the day. Okay. The older juror who seems to encourage these younger tech experts is smiling now. What? As are a couple of other jurors. The older juror who seems to encourage these younger tech experts is smiling now. Sue said it's hard for her to understand without seeing the exhibit. There is a lot of dense material here, but Hyde adds real-life examples of use to communicate to the jury the examples of how other IRL things work in comparison. Even Sue kind of had a hard time noting some of this stuff. Okay. Explains the technical process of 6:22 a.m. search. Explain the Apple suggested term. All right. I don't know what's going on. Let me see if I can look at somebody else. Allie, I don't know if you're watching. Who was that person that was giving up-to-date stuff in the courtroom? Interesting. Apple, okay, a table provided in Ms. Hyde's own report actually supports. So people are still trying to say that she searched it at 2:27. I don't know. I thought her testimony, I mean, it was a lot to take in, but I thought she clearly said there was no search before like 6 something. I can't find that person in the courtroom that was tweeting stuff out. There's so many tweets. I can't even. All right, let me try searching Allie. Okay, Allie. Let's see. Okay, here's the guy. I found the guy. David. Being Nick. Okay. I like this guy too. He's honest with this stuff. Okay. But I don't see anything about what's going on in the courtroom right now. Yeah. Okay, I tweeted out some stuff. Damn, I have no idea. What's going on in the courtroom? Sidebar. I have no idea. Anybody in the chat know what's going on? What the? Yes, lovely D. All right, let me see if Law and Crime. Maybe sometimes in their chat they'll tell you what's going on. Let's see. Law and Crime. Okay, they have an Ozempic ad in their chat. Okay. Oh my god. This guy Alex said the free Karen Reed community equals stalkers, sociopaths, and mentally ill. Oh my god. Somebody was telling me earlier the long crime chat is crazy. That's literally the first thing I opened up and see. Holy moly. I don't see anything about what's going on in the courtroom. Oh, please. What's Farmer? Maybe I should send a super chat to Law and Crime. Can I do this shit? Can I troll them? I don't know if they'll let me send a super chat. Let me do this shit. Can I do it? I think Long Crime. Oh, they have me blocked. I'd have to send it on another account. Yo, Long Crime. Oof, they're fighting over there. Well, I have no idea what's happening. I guess we're on a break. Yeah, people feel really strongly they're arguing over there in the chat. Okay. All right. Well, I guess we'll just wait. I'm gonna go use the restroom and wait for these people to come back. Streamlabs might be turned off. The thing today too is today I thought they were supposed to do a voir dire. So I thought one of the days that the judge said the jury was gonna go home, it was gonna be a half a day for the jury, and the other half was gonna be this voir dire of testimony from a witness that the defense wanted to bring in that was gonna testify about the bruises and stuff like that on John O'Keefe is from a dog. So there was this whole big thing that was supposed to happen. So I don't know if that's still happening today. I don't know what's going on. Some of the Miss Hyde, I feel like I'm going to have to find an article. There's this news reporter that said, here's two things. Hyde's bottom line, search for sports was done at 2:27 a.m. and search for how long to die in the cold was done at 6:23 and 6:24. She says no evidence of purposeful deletions. The other thing this reporter said, he said this backs up Jen McCabe's testimony that she used her phone to look up basketball info, which she did say in the middle of the night, which they were all saying she lied about that, then used it after O'Keefe was found at Reed's request to search for info about hypothermia. So she's basically co-signing or corroborating Jen's testimony that there wasn't this 2:27 a.m. search. At 2:27, she actually searched for this, a different search. But because of the way that the system works in the tabs, and I guess she left the tab open, it could be perceived as that, but that's not what it is. It's Friday. At least it's Friday, guys, right? It's Friday. What's up, Facebook? I'm checking you guys. Dave. Kim says, Ick, how can I send them to you? What are you trying to send me? I'm scrolling up to see your messages. Hey, can you send your pics I found on Twitter of John? Okay, DM it to me on Facebook, I guess. Send it to my page. And I'll look for the DMs. Sport TV. It's gonna be. I'm really curious to see the defense. Hopefully they do the defense. Like I said, hopefully they didn't call it early for the day, but that might be beneficial to the defense if they did call it early. Maybe they can do some research and poke some holes.
When you look at this number raw, you can actually see that it's consistent throughout, even though you don't.
I've done a poll a couple of times. And I think throughout the trial we can keep doing it just to see if people have changed their mind or they still feel the same. All right, I'll be right back. I'm going to use the restroom.
Thank you. Maybe seated. Close that.
Just watch your step.
Mr. Lally?
Yes, Your Honor. The Commonwealth seeks to introduce and admit as the next three exhibits, Table 1, Table 2, and Figure 1 from Ms. Hyde's report.
Okay. There's no objection, Mr.
There's no objection, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Just Table 1, Table 2. I think the order I gave. Thank you. And thank you, Your Honor, and thank you very much, ma'am. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
All right. Ms. Giannetti?
Thank you very much, Your Honor.
Good afternoon, Ms. Hyde.
Good afternoon, sir.
Ms. Hyde, you just spent maybe 45 minutes to an hour, whatever the time period was, explaining to these jurors what is really a complex set of facts that led you to conclude that the 2:27 a.m. timestamp on that Google search was triggered by the closing of a tab. Did I essentially sum that up correctly?
Essentially, except it's not a 2:27 a.m. timestamp on a Google search. It's a 2:27 a.m. timestamp on a tab.
Fair enough. Thank you. And in the context or in the course of your explanation, you discussed WAL files?
That is correct.
SQLite database?
Yes.
plist database?
Yes.
Knowledge C database?
Yeah. plist is not a database, just it's a structure, so just a small correction.
Thank you for the correction. Opening tabs and closing tabs, correct?
Yes.
And other issues related to your analysis of the phone extraction, correct?
Would you call them issues? Or
well, maybe that's a bad word to use. Other elements.
Elements. Fair enough. Yes. Yes.
I'm really not trying to trick you. I know I wouldn't be able to. Would you agree with me that another simple explanation for that 2:27 a.m. timestamp was that the user of that iPhone conducted that search at or before 2:27 a.m.?
Can you rephrase, please?
I'm going to phrase it the same way and hope I...
Repeat it, please.
Thank you. Would you agree with me that another simple explanation for that 2:27 a.m. timestamp was that the user of that iPhone conducted that search at or before 2:27 a.m. on January 29th of 2022?
That timestamp is not indicative of a time of search. So the question is difficult to answer because I can't say that that timestamp tells me anything about the time of search.
Okay. So as I take your answer, you're not denying that the timestamp and whatever you get from that timestamp doesn't rule out that the Google search was done at or before 2:27 a.m., correct?
If I'm understanding your question, there was a double negative, so I just want to clarify. The question is if the timestamp could exist because of a search happening at that time?
No.
Okay.
What I'm saying is your analysis of the phone does not rule out that the user of that phone performed that Google search at or before 2:27 a.m.
There is no indication of a Google search at or before 2:27 a.m.
But again, I'm getting to whether you can rule that out, ma'am. That's really the crux of my question. Can you rule out that the user of that phone conducted that search at or before 2:27 a.m. on January 29th?
There is a very unlikely possibility based on the fact that there is no evidence that the search occurred before that time. That's just like saying that the user searched for pandas at 2:27 a.m. Could you rule that out? I can't rule out something that doesn't exist.
Well, you would agree with me that with regard to your analysis of this phone extraction, you were given very specific instructions in terms of what to look at, correct?
Correct. I had a very limited scope in this analysis.
And who was it that gave you that limited scope?
That scope was relayed to me by Detective Tully.
Okay. And Detective Tully instructed you specifically to only look at the part of the phone extraction that dealt with the Safari search history.
Safari search history specific to January 29th, 2022. That is correct.
And he instructed you not to look at anything else on the phone, correct?
I looked at related artifacts such as such as what was being done at that time, the phone being on, the phone being used, but not anything else outside of that, correct?
And you were not instructed, for instance, to look at other user activity on the phone, including examining call logs on the phone, correct?
Correct.
And you would agree with me that if you were allowed or instructed to examine the call logs, that could reveal deletion of calls that morning, correct?
Objection.
Okay, the objection is sustained.
Thank you, ma'am.
I mean, if that's what she was there for, to examine the call logs and they didn't give it to her, yes. We're not talking about call logs. We're talking about the search.
Follow up, Mr. Lally?
No, Your Honor, no redirect.
Ms. Hyde, you are all set.
Thank you very much.
Shit! They don't have a fucking thing! They don't have nothing! That's it! That's it! They don't
All right, Mr. Lally, your next
shit.
witness.
Yes, Your Honor, the call mode.
They don't have shit! Reaching into the skies, praying to God. Reaching as far as you can reach. That's all you got? That's it?
Commonwealth would call Trooper Joseph Paul to the stand.
Okay.
I got nothing! Fuck out of here! The biggest thing in the case that they've been holding on to, don't got shit to say? They couldn't cross this woman, just like Tully. I had a feeling. Talking about call logs. Bitch, we ain't talking about call logs. We're talking about the Google search call logs. What? That's what it's smoke and mirrors with these people. Who talked to anybody about no call logs? We here to talk about the Google search, how long it died in the cold. These people got merch, shirts, tattoos and shit. I'm kidding about the tattoos. I got shit. Yo, I was like, they better come back and do something good. But the witness, they ain't do nothing. Nothing. Just like Carrie robberies. Nothing.
Step back. Just watch your step forward.
Nothing.
Maintain your face apart.
Oh, you said donate $300,000, $400,000.
Truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God.
I do.
Good morning. Good morning.
Thanks, Stephanie.
All right, Mr. Lally, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Could you please state your name and spell your last name for the jury?
Trooper Joe Paul, that's P-A-U-L.
And how are you employed, sir?
I am currently employed with the Massachusetts State Police.
And how long have you been a trooper with the state police?
I have been a trooper for approximately 8.5 years.
And
12.5 years. I apologize.
Oh, come on, Ray.
And
you're the only person that got that.
Where is it that you're currently assigned within the state police?
I am currently assigned to our collision analysis and reconstruction section, otherwise known as CARS, our recon.
And how long have you had that assignment to the reconstruction of the CARS?
That one's for about 8.5 years.
And with respect to your assignment to that unit, prior to beginning with that unit, let me ask you this first. As far as the cars unit is concerned, about how is that sort of divided up as far as is there certain regions that you would specifically cover?
Correct. We have four separate regions across the states. We have Southeast, the Northeast, Central, and the Western.
And which of those are you assigned to?
I am assigned to the Southeast.
And geographically, how much territory are we talking about that the Southeast covers?
Anywhere from Boston down to the Cape, Martha's Vineyard, Nantucket, anywhere southeastern part of Massachusetts.
And currently, how many troopers are assigned to this specialized reconstruction unit within your Southeast region?
Within our Southeast region, we have, I believe we have 9 now.
And is there some kind of on-call system that your unit operates by?
Yes.
And can you describe that to the jury?
So we rotate. We rotate every day. Our on-calls are for 24 hours from 0700 to 0700 the next day.
Now, with respect to yourself, prior to you entering into the cars unit, what, if any, specialized training do you undergo in regard to crash reconstruction?
So when before I got into the unit, I was sent to 3 separate classes. Each class was 40 hours long. So the first class is basic at-scene crash investigation. Next one's advanced crash investigation, and the other one's traffic crash reconstruction.
And with each of these trainings that you underwent prior to being assigned to the cars unit, and some more that we'll talk about in a moment, with respect to each of the trainings that you've been a part of or undergone, is there some sort of certification that you receive in regard to a successful completion of those trainings?
Yes, each one has its own certification.
Now, with respect to, since you've been working with the cars unit over the last several years, what, if any, additional specialized training have you received in the area of crash reconstruction?
Since I've been on, I've been into probably about 877 hours of education in the units. That's anything from bicycle crash investigation, human factors. I'm currently certified through Burla for examiner and a technician. I am a CDR analyst and a CDR technician trainer. Just recently I attended multiple seminars, and most recently I attended a seminar in Houston on EDR data retrieval.
Now, among those other trainings that you received, some of those trainings pertain specifically to pedestrian crashes?
Correct.
And in addition to the training that you received through the state police, what, if any, professional organizations do you belong to in regard to crash reconstruction?
Yes. I am currently part of NAPARS, which is the National Professional Accident Reconstruction Section, and I'm also certified through ACTAR, which is the Accreditation Commission for Traffic Accident Reconstruction.
Now, if I can focus specifically just for a moment on the ACTAR certification, can you explain to the jury sort of what goes into that, and as far as that certification is concerned, how does one obtain it?
Okay, so first thing you do is you got to submit an application to ACTAR to be allowed to take the test, and part of the you got to tell them how much education you've had, how many crashes you investigated, basically anything within the crash investigation world. And then once they find that you're accepted to take the test, then you got to set up a time for the test. We did it as a section throughout our state, and
Buster,
the test is a 2-part test. It's a practical and theory portion of the test. Each part's 4 hours long, and you got to pass both portions to be certified through ACTAR.
So there's a written exam and a practical portion of the test as well?
Correct.
And can you explain to the jury sort of the practical portion? What does that consist of?
The practical portion is you basically have to analyze a collision. So they give you a simulated crash, and you have to go through and document the evidence. You have to answer a series of questions based on that specific crash, so where you find the speeds, the distances, times, and everything else related to that collision.
And you successfully completed and received that certification, sir, is that correct?
That's correct.
And how long ago was it that you first received your ACTAR certification?
In 2019.
And how long is that is that sort of in perpetuity, or is there a sort of continuing educational component attached to it?
There is a continuation educational component attached to it. The test is it's certified for 5 years, and within those 5 years, you still have to maintain a certain amount of education to reapply for ACTAR again.
And with respect to that ACTAR examination, are you familiar with sort of the success rate or the passing rates when it comes to that examination?
Correct.
And what is it?
It's fairly low. I can tell you within my unit at the time I took it, there were probably 20-something of us that took it, and only 3 of us passed it at the time. Yeah, it's not a very high pass rate.
Now, over the course, let me ask you this. When you first sort of enter into the CARS units, are you just sort of, you go through the training and then you are on call and get sent out on the road by yourself, or how does that work?
No, you first get initially assigned to a field training officer, and then at that point you shadow the field training officer to various crashes.
And is there any sort of set time period for how long that shadowing process goes on for?
It's not really a set time. It's more based on experience, on how many crashes you go to and how much experience you have in the field. And then they basically, well, if they feel like if you're deemed qualified, then they'll send you on the road on your own.
And over the course of your years within the CARS or the Reconstruction unit, approximately how many crashes have you responded to and investigated?
As of now, I've been to approximately 196 crashes, and I've probably assisted another 100, 150 crashes.
And of those, of all those crashes that you've responded to, investigated, if you know, percentage-wise or number-wise, approximately how many of those have been crashes involving pedestrians?
I know I've been to approximately 55 pedestrian crashes, and I've assisted others on pedestrian crashes also. So, I mean, 55 out of 196.
Now, with respect, if I could, turn your attention to January 29th, 2022. Do you recall that date?
I do.
And at some point over the course of that date, were you contacted by somebody in regard to a pedestrian collision that occurred, in the town of Kansas?
I was.
And do you recall who was it that first reached out, or how did you first become aware of this?
My sergeant, Sergeant Brian Mahoney, was the one who called me at the time.
And initially, as far as your involvement was concerned, what was your understanding as the initial request for your involvement in this?
My initial request was to image the airbag control module, do a inspection, test the vehicle, and map the scene out.
Now, you've used that term a couple of times, and if I could just ask you to explain it a bit for the jury. When you say an airbag control module or an ACM, what is that, and what do you understand that term to mean in the context of crash reconstruction?
The ACM is the module in a car that controls the airbags and the seatbelt pretensioners.
And what you were referencing before as far as being a CDR, having taken CDR trainings and being a CDR instructor, what, if any, relationship does the CDR have to ACM?
CDR is just the crash data retrieval software. It's the software that we use to image or download an airbag control module.
And can you explain to the jury sort of the process of physically sort of how that's done as far as what are you doing to the vehicle in order to download that information?
Yes. There are 2 ways really to download a vehicle. It's either one is direct to module or just direct to the vehicle through the DLC port or the diagnostic link connector. Direct to module, we don't use a direct to module if a vehicle had no power. Then we would have to go directly find the module inside the vehicle and go right to that specific module. But if the car has power, we would go direct to the DLC port, which is the same port that you see when you're like a technician would do the diagnostics on a car. They would plug underneath the steering wheel, and then we'll get there, extract the information from there.
Now, once that information is extracted, what, if any, training have you received in regards to reading or interpreting the data that's extracted from?
Yes, I've been certified through as a CDR analyst, and I've taken 2 classes on it now.
Now, sir, turning your attention to February 1st, 2022, On that date, where, if anywhere, did you go in relation to your investigation in this case?
I went to the Canton Police Department.
Now, at some point prior to that, were you made aware, or did you do any research into sort of what the weather was like around the time? What was reported to you initially as around the time that the crash occurred?
Before that, I know it was snowing and turned to a blizzard at the time.
Now, initially on February 1st, 2022, where did you go?
To Canton Police Department.
Now, sir, at some point in time on that date, did you also have occasion to go to a residence or a street called Fairview Road in the town of Canton?
I did.
And specifically, there was a address that you were directed to, is that correct?
That's correct.
And who, if anyone, did you go there with?
I believe it was one of the Canton police officers, Lieutenant Paul Gallagher, I think his name was. I met him there.
And without anything specific as to what was told to you by Lieutenant Gallagher, what was sort of the purpose of having Lieutenant Gallagher there with you at that time?
He was going to show me where basically the evidence that they have at that point was.
Now, in addition to that, were you also able to, you're familiar with another specialized unit within the state police called the CERT team?
I am.
And at some points, did you have access to certain diagrams created by Lieutenant O'Hara within the CERT unit?
Yes, I was.
May I approach the witness, John?
Yes.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as Exhibit 135 and 136. Ask you to just review that before we finish. I'm sorry, Mr. Jackman. That's okay. You recognize those, sir?
I do.
And, Your Honor, with the court's permission, if I could just publish that briefly for the jury.
Okay.
Ms. Gilman, if I could actually have Exhibit 136.
Mustard, thank you so much for the membership. Appreciate that. 20 memberships. Thank you so much. You're super kind. I know you guys just moved. You're dealing with a lot. And so I really appreciate that. And I know we disagree on this too. So thank you so much. Love you and the family. Wait till I post my next tweet. Oh, God. Okay.
As you recall, do you recognize what's up on the screen as Exhibit 136?
I do.
This is the diagram that you were able to view from the created by Lieutenant O'Hara from the CERT team.
Yes, it was.
And what's contained, at least when this overhead shot, is that fair and accurate trail of the roadway or the conditions of the roadway, absent obviously the weather at the time that you went out there on February 1st.
Correct.
So you can take that. Thank you. Sorry, forgive me, Your Honor, if I could just have 1 second.
Sure.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
So I'm going to retrieve that from you. I'm going to look 2 other photographs before you after they just look at those before finished.
Yep.
And do you recognize those, sir?
I do.
What do you recognize those to be?
They are pictures that were in my report. They're Google images of the roadway.
And one facing from the northbound direction, one facing from the southbound. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
I'll hold this through some minutes and next exhibit.
No objection. Okay. All we need to.
And Your Honor, with the court's permission, if I could just publish these, first return them to the witness and then publish them briefly.
Yes.
Okay. I'm unstoppable.
Trooper, directing your attention to the screen. What you have before you is that, what's up on the screen, excuse me, is that what you have before you now marked as 582?
Yes, it is.
And if you could, there should be a laser pointer on the desk somewhere before you, sir. If you could, just using that laser pointer directs the jury's attention to sort of what we're looking at in this particular photograph of the road.
All right. So this is Ferry Road. It's facing northbound. 34 Fairview Road would be on to the left in this area.
Now, with regard to the roadway, when you went there, what, if any, observations or what, if anything, did you note about sort of the roadway surface or markings on the roadway or general overall condition of the road?
The roadway was, there's no significant difference, anything significant with the roadway.
As far as the roadway material, were you able to observe whether or not it was sort of asphalt?
Thank you, Shenanigans.
Right. Yes, it was an asphalt roadway.
And as far as the markings within the roadway, what, if any, observations did you make of those?
There was double yellow stone line, white fog lines on both sides of the edge of the road. Is that what we're going after, the roadways?
And then as far as adjacent to the roadway or adjacent to the fog line, what, if anything, did you observe there?
So as you look at the picture, the left side has asphalt curbings. These are about 5 inches tall, same on both sides, and there's a sidewalk along the right side of the roadway here.
And the side with the asphalt curbings, that's the same side that 34 Fairview is located on, is that correct?
Correct.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have the next slide. And Trooper Paul, if I could direct your attention to the next decision before you, I believe it's 583. And again, sir, what's up on the screen, is that what you have before you, it's 583?
Yes, it is.
And if you could, again, using the laser pointer, just briefly direct the jury's attention to what, if anything, you note as far as from this perspective.
Yeah, so this is the southbound. 34 Fairview would be on the right side here.
Ms. Gilman, you can take that. Can I approach this to retrieve your arm?
Yes.
Now, Trooper, with regard to the roadway as far as Fairview Road, what, if anything, did you note in regard to postings regarding the speed limit on that particular roadway?
Yes, the posting for a speed limit is 30 miles per hour. At this area, it's only posted 30 miles per hour for northbound operators, and I believe it was like 19 Fairview Road is posted in front of. For the southbound operators, it was not posted.
And so for a northbound operator, that would again be someone where the residents of 34 Fairview Road will be on the left-hand side of the road, is that correct?
That's correct.
And with regard to the width of the lanes, or what, if any, measurements did you take in regard to the lanes or the roadway itself?
Yeah, each travel lane was approximately 12 feet, and the overall width was approximately 27 feet.
Now, as far as measurements being conducted with regard to the scene, what, if anything, did you use or employ to make those measurements, or what, if any, devices?
Yes, I mapped the scene with a Leica GNSS GPS total station, and also used a drone.
That's a UAS, is that correct?
Correct.
The drone, I mean?
Yes.
And with regard to each of those, as far as the GPS mapping and the drone, have you received any sort of specialized training in regard to employment of each of those tools?
Yes, I have been certified to use the Leica, and I've also have a Part 107 license for the drone.
Now, as far as starting with the Leica or the GPS, if you could explain to the jury sort of what that is and how you use that device in order to, as you termed it, map the scene.
Yes, it's essentially what surveyors would use to make roadways. It uses satellites and GPS data plus cell phone data to make marks on the roadway, or actually not marks, but just mark points in the roadway that are within millimeters of the device.
And with regard to the drone device, sir, does that, can you explain to the jury sort of how that works and how that's used?
Yeah, so the drone, and we fly the drone around the area. We set it to set up a grid pattern to fly around the scene. And while it's flying this grid pattern, it takes a series of photographs. And these photographs are also GPS marked. So once we get all the photographs in, we throw into a program, and the program will essentially stitch us all together. And then once we get that picture, we throw it into a diagramming system.
And that diagramming system, have you also received training in regard to utilization of that diagramming system?
Yes, I have.
And the one that you're currently using within the CARS unit, what is that diagramming system or software called?
It's IMS 360.
And Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Yes.
Sir, I'm showing you 4 documents, asking you to just review those. Finish. And do you recognize those, sir?
I do.
And what do you recognize those to be?
These are the diagrams that we print out through the program.
And the last one is the drone image, is that correct?
Yes, they're all drone images. The last one is just one that was put into my diagram, and I labeled it as a drone image.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
I'll multi-seat to introduce the witness next 4 exhibits. No objection. Yes, that's my fault. Thank you very much. Sure. Now, Trooper Paul, are you familiar with the term, well, let me ask you this, in regard to the roadway itself, what, if anything else, beyond sort of lane width and overall width, what, if any, other measurements did you take there?
So we took measurements for the evidence.
And let me ask it this way, as far as with elevation and incline of the roadway, what, if any, measurements did you take in regard to that?
Yeah, so we took the elevation and roadway measurements, or the elevation for the roadway.
And where in relation to the residents at 34 Fairview did you take that? Sort of the entire street or just in the general area of that specific address?
In the general area of that specific address.
And from your measurements as far as, well, let me ask you this, how was measurement regarded to elevation or incline? What kind of tool do you use for that?
We have a level, it's a digital level that we'll place on the roadway, and we'll get a measurement from that.
Now, with regard to the measurements that you took of the elevation or the incline in the roadway, anything, or what, if anything, of significance did you find from that?
So this roadway had approximately plus or minus 1 to 2 degrees.
So nothing significant, is that fair to say?
Nothing significant, yes.
Now, sir, through your training and experience as a crash reconstructionist, are you familiar with the term related to crash reconstruction called roadway evidence?
Yes.
And can you explain to the jury sort of what your understanding of that term is and what types of things could be termed as roadway evidence?
Roadway evidence is anything that's related to the collision you're investigating at the time. It could be anything from vehicle debris, gouge marks, tire marks, anything that's related to a vehicle or whatever type of crash you are investigating. It could be vehicle or pedestrians.
So any sort of anything from either the vehicle, pedestrian as well, is that correct?
Correct.
So pieces from a vehicle, holding items from a pedestrian, correct?
Yes.
Now, with respect to both your review of the CERT team diagrams as well as speaking with members of the Canton Police Department, were you able to then plot certain pieces of roadway evidence onto those diagrams that you that I just showed you a few moments ago?
Yes, I was.
Now, with reference to, you're familiar also through your training and experience when it comes to pedestrian crashes, as far as sort of the physics or kinematics of how pedestrians interact with vehicles in the course of a collision?
Yes, I am.
Now, I'm going to ask you just a couple of terminology questions when it comes to items that are involved in a collision, sort of simple Newtonian physics, Newton's first law. Can you explain what that is to the jury and sort of how that pertains to any collision between two objects?
The first law?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the when an object stays in motion or stays at rest, will stay at motion or rest until acted upon by an outside force.
Now, with respect to, are you familiar also with a crash reconstruction term called final rest?
Yes, I am.
And are there different derivations of final rest as far as controlled final rest versus uncontrolled final rest?
Correct.
And can you explain just first to the jury what final rest means in relation to crash reconstruction, and then what, if any, differences there are between a controlled final rest and an uncontrolled final rest?
Yes, the final rest is what we use for describe the area where a pedestrian came to stop after the collision. It's immediately after the collision. This is where they first stopped, or a vehicle. Usually at the collision, it's where this vehicle first stopped. And a controlled final rest is when an operator actually controls the vehicle to the stop, and as opposed to the uncontrolled final rest is when there is no control. It's usually acted upon by outside forces that will control the vehicle or pedestrian to its final rest.
And, Your Honor, with court's permission, if I could publish what's now been marked as Exhibits 584 through 587 for the jury.
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, if I could first have the diagram, please. And Your Honor, may I approach this to return the exhibits to the witness? Ms. Gilman, if I could ask you to zoom in just a little bit on that. And now, Trooper, what you have up on the screen, is that what you have before you as first in that exhibit?
Yes, it is.
Now, using the laser before you, if you could, I would ask you to draw the jury's attention or direction to what, if anything, of significance you have noted within this diagram.
Okay. Want to use the pointer?
Yes.
Okay. So in this time, I labeled each part of evidence. So right here would be the pedestrian's final rests, and they're all, since there's so many put together, everything was labeled with a red arrow that would be pointing to where the final rest is. And this is where a glass cup was found, and these are the red and clear plastic pieces. That's where they were found, and the pedestrian's shoe was found here. The smaller versions here in the light blue is one's the fire hydrants, the flagpole. This is a label for the street 34, and obviously the street name Fairview Road here.
Now, as far as measurements were concerned, what, if anything, were you able to do to measure sort of between different points of roadway evidence, or specifically from the pedestrian or Mr. O'Keefe's final rest in reference to other items that you have depicted on the diagram?
So we're talking about on these diagrams, like it's hard to see here, but it is a scale diagram. The diagram itself is scale. Once you put a roll up to the actual paper, it's scale. I've also have on here, sorry to see, but I think it's right here. They're called ground control points. They're little X's on the roadway. They're used for the drones imaging, and using the drone imaging will use those in order to help put all the pictures back together. At the time of this, I measured between each point from ground control point 1 to 2 and put it as approximately 50 feet. And 2 to 3 is 50 feet, and 3 to 4 is 50 feet. So it kind of is a second way to measure off the diagram, and also using the program to measure to different points while using the diagram.
And as far as starting with the shoe that you have depicted in this diagram, what was the measurement of the shoe away from Mr. O'Keefe's body?
I believe the shoe was approximately, I have in my thing, it's approximately 10 feet away.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, may the trooper refer to his report just for the specific measurements?
Yes.
Okay.
And sorry, trooper, with regard to the shoe, how far away approximately was that from Mr. O'Keefe's body?
9 feet.
And did you also have a measurement for how far away the glass cup pieces were from Mr. O'Keefe's body?
Yeah, 1 foot.
And for the red plastic you have labeled on this diagram as A, how far away from Mr. O'Keefe's body was that?
7 feet.
Now, with regard to the directionality, you also measured sort of directionality as far as the 9 feet that the shoe was away. Which direction was it?
Each evidence was measured from the pedestrian's final rest. So the shoe was 9 feet southeast from the pedestrian's final rest.
And if you could, using the laser pointer on the screen, as far as the directionality of, or if you could first direct the jury's attention to where Mr. O'Keefe's final rest is, and then as far as the directionality of southeast from that, where is it?
Okay, so right here, pedestrian's final rest, it's more right there. The shoe is right here, so it would be kind of southeast. I have an arrow pointing north to kind of give it extra.
And the glass cup that was 1 foot away, in which direction was that?
It was about 1 foot north. I think it was found like within, right next to him, so.
And the red plastic that you have labeled as A, again, that was 7 feet. In which direction was that, sir?
That one was east, so it's right here.
As far as the clear plastic, what was the measurement and what was the directionality to that item, sir?
10 feet southeast, so we're about over here.
And the red plastic that you have labeled on the diagram is B. How far was that and what directionality was that?
That was 12 feet southeast, and that was found right here.
Thank you. Sir, if I could direct your attention to the next exhibit before your diagram number 2 of the film, if I could have that, please. Sir, do you recognize what's depicted up on the screen?
Yes, I do.
And if you could, again, using the laser pointer, what, if anything, of significance to observe in this particular diagram in reference to the roadway evidence?
It's just essentially the same diagram. It's just a closer up version of it. So you had, yeah. So you saw the pedestrian's final rest, glass cup, plastic pieces, the shoe. It's all still depicted in the diagram.
And the red arrows that you had indicated, delineated, depicted sort of from where the words are to where the items were. Is that present in this diagram as well?
Correct.
If I could direct your attention to the next exhibit before you, and if I could have diagram 3, Ms. Gill. And again, Trooper, do you recognize what's up on the screen?
I do.
And if you could just describe to the jury, what are we looking at in this diagram?
Yeah, so this is just a closer up to the evidence. It's a little smaller scale.
Right. What I miss?
And these diagrams are created from photographs with the drone overhead on that date of February 1st. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And if I could direct your attention to the last exhibits within those images. And again, sir, if you could, you recognize what's up on the screen?
I do.
And could you describe to the jury again using the laser pointer to delineate what, if anything, is significant to observe in this drone photograph and diagram you have?
Yeah, so this is from my report. It's the same diagram. It has the same amount of evidence on here. There's a house, There's a light pole here. These lines here, which I mentioned earlier, were the edge of the road and the edge of the sidewalk.
Thanks. Someone you can take that down.
All right, Mr. Lally, why don't we pause here for the lunch and recess?
Oh,
Trooper
lunch,
Paul
okay.
will have you back with us this afternoon, okay?
Thank you.
And if you follow the jurors out, please.
Lunchtime!
All rise for Jerry.
And jurors, why don't we take 45 minutes?
You are muted.
I'll see counsel at sidebar.
All right. So I didn't really see anything this guy was saying. Might be good testimony. I was trying to find. That lady left for the day, so I'm not gonna see anything. Okay. Well, somebody on Twitter is upset. He said, "Please, I've watched you use your daughter and pets to gain followers." Oh my God. You've lost a lot of followers and subscribers with your idiotic contrarian takes. They're so blind as those who will not see. This guy he's following me. I guess he watches my videos. His profile picture is an actor. I don't my daughter, she's like, I don't even think she's rarely even on. I don't think she likes to get on camera. She's like on the side or whatever. But, yo, Twitter, I'm telling you, Twitter is fucking crazy. Crazy. Hold on, let me see. Lillian London. I think for the lunch break, I'm going to take a break. I'm just going to chill and come back. But I don't think she said how long of a break they're going to take. I can't rule on something that doesn't exist. That was so dope when this chick said that. But yeah, I've never seen this guy leave me a comment before. But this is the first. I mean, he could have, but I'm just saying this is the first time I noticed. And he's like, what did he say? He said, "I'm contrarian," which is the funny thing because I'm never like that. I just happen to disagree with a majority of the people, and that's how I actually feel. But I don't know. I guess if you disagree, they start accusing you of... Oh, he also said I'm engagement farming. So I was like, so why are you commenting on my post then? Why would you contribute to that? If I'm engagement farming, why would you continue to help me out? Like, he's actually literally helping me out by commenting and posting and all this stuff and whatever. This is the tweet I made earlier. I think this lady, I think it was really good. She did really good testimony. I think she killed it. Now, I was... Oh, thank you, Perry. 40 to 45 minute break. I think she killed it. And people were making fun of her and how she looks, whatever. I think she killed it. I was worried about when the defense came because what I was worried about is like, you know how sometimes she seems really nice and sweet. And so sometimes people run over nice and sweet people. Like I've dealt with that in my life. People just take advantage and run you over. So I was a little worried. She held it down. She held it down. Didn't waver, corrected him multiple times, and just like Brian Tully almost, or even like Kerry Roberts, they didn't have much to say. And I just think that like this 2:27 a.m. search is like the biggest claim that I've seen some of these people make online on Twitter. How long to die in the cold? These people literally had shirts. They're making merch. These people donated like $300,000 to this woman over the weekend. And with one person, just like that, I know people disagree. Some people don't think she said anything. She's very overqualified. She's qualified. She dismantled the 2:27 a.m. thing. And what people are saying too, some people that reply to my comments, this is not even the Cellbrite person. When the Cellbrite person comes, they're saying the Cellbrite person is going to corroborate this person as well. So from what I've seen is... Okay,
all rise. Let's stand for the lunch. 45 minutes.
So from what I've seen, these people are just going to have to keep adding every
Hey there,
witness.
Karen Reed, trial watch.
What they're going to have to do is every person is in on the conspiracy. Every witness, expert testimony, every person that takes a stand is in the conspiracy. And if you disagree, you're in on the conspiracy too. You're involved. I think it's huge. I mean, I don't know. Who knows? Maybe the defense will bring some people out when it's their time and they'll whatever. But what I've noticed, just like the belt, just like the shoe, there's been so many things that I didn't even know these people were holding on to for like months and a year or 2 years. And when you're watching the trial, as days go on, it's a very slow, like I said, it's like a slow, methodical turtle speed. But piece by piece, it's starting to kind of disassemble, maybe, or take apart. You know? After a certain point, you gotta like kind of step back and be like, okay, everybody can't be all these people. Like everybody's a liar, and everybody they even accusing the kids. Even John O'Keefe's, I think it was the niece, said that Karen was on the phone talking about, oh, did I hit him or could I hit him? Shit like that. Even the kids, the kids are in on it too. Like at a certain point. Come on, it's like, I don't know, but what I think it is the conspiracy, I guess, for people makes it interesting, and yes, fall vibes, yes. Fall said you went from not knowing to being completely flipped to the extreme. Yes, yeah. I waited for bits and pieces of information to come through, and then I made a decision. Because people kept wanting to know, too. And normally I have the general... Normally I think I agree with the general consensus. This is like the first time I have a somewhat different opinion than the general consensus. Masshole Mafia said some really nice things about me last night. Oh, she read a really nice post. I think it was last night. That was really nice. Or did I see it this morning? Maybe, I don't know. Oh yeah, I think it was last night, but I saw it this morning. Hi, baby. Steph, thank you for the membership. And what's crazy is like some of these people online, they're like, oh, I'm doing it to get views. And I'm like, what? I mean, I have lost subs and followers because of the things that I've said, but I'm not going to lie about it. Why am I going to lie and make up what I think and feel? I'm not, Jack. I think it's mostly just Twitter, Jacqueline. Twitter is crazy. Twitter. I think it's mostly just Twitter, like the environment. I don't know. Oh, the body language experts did a video on Karen Reed.
Greg, tell us about the videos we're gonna.
I don't believe too much in the body language. I'll say I'm skeptical. But I mean, sometimes I guess you can kind of find things, but I'm
much.
So this video interview, and it was a very short one, and we're gonna have very short clips, was from Nightline, BBC Nightline.
No, they did the video. They did the Nightline video. Maybe we'll have to come back and react to it.
Murder 2 that she's been charged with in Boston courts for the death of a Boston police officer. Really good, interesting one. Her boyfriend.
You're alleging that law enforcement officials in the state committed murder and that they're covering it up. Why would they want to be involved in this?
Because he's dead. I think things went too far. It was late. There was alcohol involved, but they're all family. And there's many of them involved.
After posting bail, Reed has spent much of the past 18 months in and out of court awaiting a trial date.
And me and my family and my attorneys and my team have marshaled every resource to get to the truth. It just feels like no one else wants it.
Prosecutors allege that Reed hit O'Keefe with her car.
Okay, we know the story. Let's see. Hold on.
I would call him the patron saint of Canton. He was just very selfless, frugal, and I think you'd be hard pressed to find anyone that didn't care for John.
All right, Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, okay, look, straight off with this one, let's just say it's super tight cuts here. It's choppy, it's all over the place, but it is what it is. I mean, it's the best we have at the moment, and so we've been holding off looking at it, but we'll look at it, but just it's choppy. So, you know, there's an issue there. You know about that. But what have we got? Well, really tight body language, not only in the whole of the body, but in the face as well, locked down, but it's choppy. So we don't know what's happening before and after. But so we're going to take that as a baseline. I don't know. I'm going to see what everybody else says about that.
Okay. You're afraid to say, okay.
Sentence.
I want to see what they said about her saying, I proceeded and proceeded with did I. That's what I want to see.
And it's hard when we're not in control of the questions. If you're a reporter and you've got an interview to do like this, and it's a big interview, consistencies.
That she's worried, are they welcome in his home? And also back in the to be social. So social, let's find a baseline of the interview advance mode.
Did because anyway, time is because if you
a time to that earth. Because when she says he walked to the door and I looked at my phone, you know what my next question would have been? What time was it? Because that's the first thing she would have seen on her phone. And then I would be able to go back and timestamp and back it up.
Also, because I knew my hands.
A person that you'd be surprised he's out socially because he doesn't seem like he ever wants to be there.
But at the bar, Reed says there was an invitation to continue hanging out at Albert's home.
I said, can we make sure we're welcome here? Nobody extended the invite to me. I didn't hear the invite extended to you.
They drive to the Alberts house. What happens next is disputed.
So I pull at the foot of the driveway. It's snowing. John has no coat on. It's windy. So I drop him off. He goes up the driveway and approaches the side door. And as I see him approach the door, I look down at my phone.
Reed says after about 10 minutes of waiting in her car, she became irritated that O'Keefe still hadn't gotten in touch with her. And she drove back to his home where she continued calling him before, she says, she fell asleep around 1:30 in the morning. She then says she woke up before 5 a.m. He still wasn't home. She then started canvassing the neighborhood.
Just gonna drive around in the 2 square miles that we spent the preceding night.
How soon was it when you pulled in there that you saw John's body?
Immediately. And what struck me when I saw him was...
Right, Erms? But I thought they were family. My fam don't eat invites, homie.
His mouth was open a little bit, and his eyes were shut, and he had spots of blood in different areas on his face.
O'Keefe was taken to the hospital.
Both Jen and Kerry that I cracked.
I just want to see the part where I want to see them react to the did I.
My taillight. I said I just hit my car on top of everything, but I didn't look at the damage. And both women said, it's cracked. It's cracked. Calm down. You cracked your taillight. You're okay. Let's go look for John.
All right, Greg, what do you got?
So if you go back and look at video 3, the video we just did, and I know Terry's, but if you go back and look at video 3, you'll see the only time she furrows her brow in this entire thing is about the interchange between her and the other cop. We don't see her furrow her brow. She has the capability, but it has to be something pretty intense for her. Well, pretty intense would be about finding your dead boyfriend. In my opinion, I would think we'd see something. Nothing. Now, does that mean she killed him? No. Could mean that she was so angry and it's been 2 years and. But if you just look at that one intensity, that one single intensity is around a personality issue with somebody she does not like, and this doesn't show it. The other thing is there's an out of baseline response to the question for how soon did you see his body. To this point, she's been pretty good at pause, answer, boom, immediately before the question's even out of the guy's mouth. That's different. Something's different. There's also a change in eye contact as he starts talking about the cracked tail light. When he starts talking about the cracked tail light, you see that eye lock that we haven't seen to now. So here's the thing. We don't know. This could be an and story, not an or story. Did you back over him? Or did you hit a car? Could be an and story, not one or the other.
Fast forward a little bit.
is saying, no, these cops killed him, beat him to death. Those are the two things to pay attention to. Asking her what.
In a car, obviously not. Whatever she hit, she didn't even get out and check out to see what the damage was. So what's up with that?
It's her car. It's her car.
Yeah.
She backed into her own car?
No, not into her own car, into John's car.
Okay. Well, then, okay. Wrong about that. Where did you hear that?
She said she backed into her car earlier.
Oh, okay.
What?
Okay.
Language. She says his eyes, his mouth, his face, instead of the mouth, or just there's snow on that mouth, or the mouth was covered in snow. And associative language can suggest a personal connection or a deep emotional engagement with the subject. There could be reasons that she's not emotional about this story. She's told it 500 times. She's going to court. She's getting prosecuted for it or charged with murder for it. We don't know.
All right. Let's. I just want to hear this part, and then maybe another day we'll watch the whole thing.
Why mention in the first place?
Immediately. And what struck me when I saw him was his mouth was open a little bit and his eyes were shut and he had spots of blood in different areas on his face.
O'Keefe was taken to the hospital and pronounced dead. He died from blunt force trauma and hypothermia. And it wasn't long before Reed became the #1 suspect. Authorities say they had noticed a cracked taillight.
My taillight. I said, I said, it's cracked. It's cracked. Calm down. You cracked your taillight.
The firefighter said that you said, I hit him.
I said, I hit him. It was preceded by a did and proceeded by a question mark. What I thought could have happened was that did I incapacitate him unwittingly somehow and then in his drunkenness passed out?
When you walked out of the bar, how many drinks had you had?
I had probably about 4.
The Commonwealth says that you had 9 drinks that night. That's what the prosecutor intoxicated.
Okay, let's get to the guys.
How many drinks they had, and they reply, I had about 4. Then they had way more than 4, like way more than 4. Anytime you hear that, it's so many more than 4. So we know, and I think she maybe does change and give us a better number. Oh no, the court, the state or whatever had worked out the intoxication to around about, what did they say, about 9 or something like that?
9, yeah.
Which is either accurate or inaccurate, but essentially, yeah. It's way more than 4. It's way more than 4. So interesting. Did I incapacitate him unwittingly and then in his drunkenness pass out? So unwitting incapacitation, then in his drunkenness, he passes out. And then we've already got this story of hypothermia, essentially. So that, if you add those stories together, it's much less likely that you can say, oh, you killed him, because she unwittingly incapacitates him. And then it's his drunkenness that causes his passing out. And then it's the earth that freezes him and kills him. So, essentially nice method potentially of distancing herself from somebody's death. I'm not saying she murdered him, but good distancing from the death.
We'll get canceled. We'll get people coming
so an
for you and your
accidental
family.
hit, but his intoxication leads to death. Probably about 4. There's a lot of uncertainty there. Well, it's full of uncertainty, really. But then at the end, did she hit him? She says, no, not possible. So how can you have all that uncertainty and then at the end go, no, that's not possible? Because you've already asked the question, did I unwittingly hit him? So surely it's a possibility. The answer should be, yeah, as I stated before, I worry about the possibility of that. So doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And it's very energized, isn't it? It's very, very passionate. So is she protesting too much?
When the victim, right?
Greg, what do you got on this one?
Couple of things that I noticed. Again, she's people focused. The reason she said no, it's not possible is because he said, is it possible? She's feeding what he asked. Exactly what he asked is the reason she said no, it's not possible. She has way too much eye contact in this point. Scott and I had the thing in the true crime workshop called the Romancer, where you're paying real close attention, making sure the person is buying what you're doing. Even if you don't believe that, watch her eyes. As her head moves, her eyes stay locked on the guy. It's kind of crazy compared to the first one.
Well, she do kind of got them crazy eyes. So I guess she's telling her story, but she want to make sure visually, like, you're concurring with her. Like,
there's another baseline deviation, Mark. You covered it. I love how much you have. She even stumbles over 4. I won't go through all those pieces, but there's a long fishing vowel in there. There's a stumble over probably. There's about. How much more conditioning do you need? And then there's an entire baseline deviation in body language at 4. She pulls her feet back under her. You know, we pull our resources under us when they're in danger. She pulls her feet back under her at one point when he starts poking on the issue. She doesn't answer the question when he says, they said you had 9 drinks. If I hadn't had 9 drinks and you said they said you had 9 drinks, I'd say that's a lie. No, I had 4. I know how much it was. She doesn't. She says they're not trying to say I wasn't in my right mind. Rest assured, unless you're 9 feet tall and 600 pounds, 9 drinks probably put you well over the legal limit to be driving.
No. But she has MS. And so you can't hold her accountable for any of her actions. She has MS. So she's immune to any kind of culpability, accountability, anything, because she has MS. So you can't say nothing. And I started replying to some of the comments. I said, yeah, but I got some health condition too. So you can't hold me accountable for my tweets, my videos, none of my actions, because according to these people, that excuses you from anything in the world, any kind of accountability.
Driving a car, and you just admitted that.
No.
Whatever the case. And I don't think she's a huge person to start with. She avoids these questions. And then I think what happens is this kind of thing becomes kind of an existential issue for her. This is where I think the whole thing.
I'm going to start using that same bullshit excuse too.
Thing is hidden. She doesn't know what happened, likely, because if you had 9 drinks, it's going to be shadowy and it's going to be that kind of thing. I'm not saying she would black out. We don't know that, but you would probably not have really good questions. And Chase, here's where I think the bait question would work wonderfully. Not in this interview, but if I was sitting in the room and talking to her, I'd say, "Look, we know X happened. We know Y happened. Is there any reason any of his DNA would be on the back of that car? Is there any reason you might find something he was carrying at that moment? Is there any reason? In fact, what the state has said is that his cocktail glass has fragments of glass on the bumper of this vehicle. So there's a whole lot of that. And then you give her a lesser charge and you'd probably get her back in, because she is conditioning the hell out of whether or not she did anything. Mark, to your point, when a person does that, when they telegraph the earth did it and all this kind of thing, you probably can get that person with a bait question pretty quickly, because they're starting to feel some kind of guilt or remorse or whatever. Doesn't mean she did this. We can't tell that. This is so chopped up. It's very, very tough. Chase, what do you got?
I'm no forensics expert. I drive a Bronco. And if I stuck a piece of cocktail glass on my bumper and then deliberately back into another vehicle, I think that glass would fall off. I don't know.
That's it?
I'm pretty sure it would. But this one's interesting. First, we're seeing her in one moment stop using her name or even a pronoun to describe him. So, as a quick lesson in the science of this, with guilty people, the person's name
Five says that I'm trolling and switching sides. It's all make believe.
Is the first to start disappearing. Pronouns are the second thing to start disappearing. So there's 2 layers there. Both of them go away, but only for 1 minute. And it's only in one specific area. When she says, did I incapacitate him unwillingly? And then in his drunkenness, like Mark was saying, passed out. Her hand reflexively goes to her chest here. I'm just afraid to hit my mic, so I would do what she did. But and people tend to do this during 3 types of statements: when they're being vulnerable, when they're more open than usual, or overly sincere. And I'll let you decide what you see right here. But here's why this video is interesting. Her deception about the number of drinks she had is so flipping obvious. There's a loss of fluency. There's hesitancy. There's lip compression. There's chin boss movement. There's immediate mouth closure following a statement, which we look for, and that is not in her baseline at all. And her eyes narrow, which is the opposite of this wide-eyed thing she's been doing her whole baseline time. Her eyes narrow, which isn't a common deception indicator until you have somebody with a baseline that has this giant eyes things. Here's my question. If her deception about something as silly as drinks was so obvious that we could spot it from 100 yards away, where is the obviousness about the other stuff? Interesting here. It's
Jay, so what are you saying? Say what you want to say. Say what you actually believe. What do you think? She didn't do anything, or she did?
Just one data point. But there's chin boss movement, this little muscle right here, about the grief and shame that we talked about earlier. At the end, when she's saying it's not possible. So, very interesting. It's starting to point to, like, it looks more like someone who can't remember what they did or they're not sure about what they did. Which, if it is a trap, if she is being framed, it's the perfect candidate. It's the perfect situation to do that in. So as a quick pro tip here, number 5, ask what happened in reverse order. Not from front to back, go back to front. This technique is effective because recounting events in reverse disrupts anything that's rehearsed, any narrative that's rehearsed. So it increases cognitive load, and it makes it way more difficult for deceptive people to keep their stories straight, and it exposes inconsistencies and reveals the truth. So if you've rehearsed something forward 5,000 times, like the alphabet, it's still hard to say backwards. Scott, what do you got?
Okay, I mean, I think he's like holding back or something. I guess he believes. I don't know. I don't know what he thinks, honestly. Jesus, say what the hell you're trying to say.
That emotion doesn't connect it this way; it connects it that way, or I guess the opposite. If you're since I'm the other way around. So that's key. I think that's really important. I thought this would be a good spot to bring in the bait question. That's why my whole thing was shot in the foot when Chase mouthed off about it in the video before this.
Like an ignoramus.
My aunt used to call it.
So that's the behavior panel. I just want to see that one part, what they had to say and like react to. So interesting. I thought that interview was really telling, but I don't know. Other people said no. Imagine like you're being accused of murder. I just said did I? I didn't say I did. Even though some other people are saying you did, but you're correcting it. Did I kill this person? And he was incapacitated, and in his incapacitated state of mind and his drunkenness, maybe somehow he was incapacitated and bro, like who says that stuff? Like what? No, I didn't kill him. Okay, that would have sufficed. The hell? Could I? Maybe. I'm not sure. Maybe. Well, he was drunk, so I don't know. And his in the state of mind. I don't know. Everybody was drinking. Yeah. Or B. That's funny. All right, I guess I'm going to take a little break. I'll be back. I'll see you guys. I set it for 1:45, the next stream. So I'm going to chill for a little bit. And we'll be back. I'm ready to check out for the day. It's Friday. I'm checked out. I just want to chill. But we'll be back. We'll be back. All right, I'll see you guys in a bit. Adios. Bloop, bloop.